going to the 90 yard. It ain't over till I say it's over. Black on black line, nigga. Black on black line. Welcome to Black History Month, nigga. What's up? Welcome to Black History Month, my boy. Welcome to BHM. It's another one. Oh, we coming back. Don't worry. Woo! We're doing this for slavery, for civil rights, for Jim Crow. Hey, happy Black History Month. Happy Black History Month. Happy Black History Month to you. BHM. Hey, you ain't even know. Welcome to Black History Month. Welcome for Rosa Parks, baby. Sojourner Truth. That's what we dropping. Sojourner Truth all month. Oh, I was about to say, we all killing each other. Did you know they let banks put mortgages on black people in Florida? You don't believe me? Let's check the statutes. See, in 1842, the Florida legislature had a huge problem of people taking loans from banks on the slaves that they owned, not paying on those mortgages, and taking the slaves and running to other states. Now, as we see here in the text, the resolution called for a committee of 3 members of the Senate and 5 from the House to be appointed for a best means of creating a bill or creating some laws around a way to stop people from running off on the plug, running off with property, as you see, that is owned or mortgaged to the banks. Those banks being the Union Bank of Florida, Southern Life Insurance and Trust Company. So they want. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the channel. Hope everybody's having a good night. Close to midnight. Starting late. It's been a long week, man. It's been a long week. Either way, I appreciate everybody tapping in for the stream tonight. Listen, I don't know what's been going on with the Diddy trial, but I was blindsided by the news of NBA Youngboy being pardoned. And that to me was more eye-opening than anything else. This week out of anything that could have came out. But last night, didn't really have a set, which I'm working on. But from that, it's like, you know, we kind of ran around the big, beautiful bill, a little bit of my girl, Jasmine Crockett. And now we're at a point saying, all right, cool, let's actually focus on the Diddy trial. It's day 10, right? So let's get there. Am I a follower of Jesus Christ? Yes, I am. Should have wore a condom. What's going on? Chancy comments, how y'all doing, man? Everybody's having a good night tonight. Let me always enjoy the chat. Out of everything on this stream, I'll tell you one thing, I enjoy the chat on anything. Let me set this up. Got a little fumble here. Hold on. Actually have a fumble in here somewhere. Let me get to this. We're gonna start with the Diddy trial. Where's everybody tapping in from tonight more than anything? Before we get there, I don't even know what to ask the chat. Should NBA Youngboy be released? We're gonna get into that, but the Diddy trial, that's about what's out there. Memphis in the building. Appreciate Memphis for being here. You know what? I gotta set up my social stream. Appreciate that. I just realized the chat's not popping up. Get my docs together. We should be good. Good evening. Let's get to the Diddy trial. Let me switch this over. Wait, hold on. Live on Twitch tonight too. So appreciate y'all tapping in. Let's get into this. I'm fumbling and bumbling tonight, but let's see where we at.
Combs' federal racketeering and sex trafficking trial took quite a turn today as celebrity stylist Deontay Nash testified that the music mogul allegedly beat his former girlfriend Cassandra Ventura until she bled, controlled every aspect of her life, and even made chilling threats. He even testified he jumped in and tried to stop one of these attacks. And by the way, that's only part of the testimony from today. There was a lot more we got to get into. I'm going to be breaking it down with our law and crime reporter Elizabeth Milner, who is inside that courtroom for every minute of the action. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber.
Yeah, we watching on Sidebar.
Everybody, this is another law and crime legal alert. If you receive Depo-Provera birth control shots and were later diagnosed, Elizabeth Milner, who has been inside that courtroom every day of the trial. Elizabeth, so good to see you. Thanks for coming here on set.
I know.
Oh, she's not outside today. Look at this.
I love it. I love it. I always see you across.
This channel is so annoying.
Happy to have you.
Damn, for real, bro.
Now, before we even get into the testimony,
I appreciate you tapping in, JP.
Deontay Nash, there was something that happened before the jury was even brought in, before testimony even began. What happened?
Yeah, so I feel like some of the most interesting things that happen in this trial are always the arguments outside of the presence of the jury. That's really when you see the attorneys in action, and really, honestly, when they're showing kind of their personality more, not playing it up so much to the jury. And so there was kind of a big ruling that was made outside of the jury presence before testimony had started today, and it regarded Kid Cudi. So there was this defense motion that they were trying to strike this last little bit of testimony where Kid Cudi essentially implied that he had believed Diddy was lying about having anything to do with the Molotov cocktail that was lodged into his car, having anything to do with the break-ins in his home. And so there was this moment at the Soho House where they had a meeting, they met up, they shook hands. So the prosecution had asked Kid Cudi, what did you make of just this meetup? And what did you think that Diddy was implying when he had said that he didn't know what he was talking about when he was asked straight up just about the Molotov cocktail, and that Kid Cudi had believed that Diddy was lying about this. And it was kind of a moment towards the end of his testimony, because this was a moment that we got to at the redirect. So this was after the cross-examination, where a lot of people were just like, oh, wow. So he definitely believes it. Was kind of another aha moment, if you will. And so the defense objected to this. The defense wanted this little piece that Kid Cudi was talking about just struck from the record. They didn't want this to go to the transcript when the jury goes into deliberation. And so the judge actually denied the defense's motion, and he had said that the door was actually opened for this line of questioning, for this type of response under the cross-examination. And so that was a big ruling that he had made earlier this morning.
Little inside baseball, as much as they tell a jury to disregard a comment, once it's made, you can't ring the bell. It's very hard to tell a jury not to consider that, which, by the way, we have something to talk about when it comes to a specific piece of testimony that the judge instructed the jury to disregard. Every night the chat popping. But we had Officer Christopher Ignacio of the LAPD testify, and he was the one who responded to the alleged break-in at Kid Cudi's home. And this is somebody who's a veteran. So he'd been with the department about 16 years. When he responded to Kid Cudi's home, what was that response like?
Yeah, so this response happened on December 22nd of 2011. This is a couple days before Christmas, around the holiday time. And so he was responding to a home up in the Hollywood Hills. The address was an address we were all very familiar with. Why? Because it was Kid Cudi's address. So he said that he was dispatched around 8:20 in the morning about a possible suspect stare down. And Ignacio had said that he had responded with police lights, sirens, just kind of the whole shebang.
It doesn't make any sense to me.
And so then we see an exhibit photo of Kid Cudi's front door. So then we know, of course, he had been responding to Kid Cudi's house. And Officer Ignacio was explaining that the neighborhood that Kid Cudi had lived in at the time, it was kind of situated above the Hollywood Hills. It has narrow views and kind of windy roads. But he said that he had noticed a black Escalade. And that to me really stuck out, because this is kind of towards the beginning of his testimony. That stuck out to me because yesterday when Capricorn Clark was testifying, she testified that Diddy, Ruben, Diddy's security guard, and Capricorn Clark all went to Kid Cudi's home in what? A black Escalade, and that they proceeded to even chase down Kid Cudi when he had been responding to this break-in
was that a weed cigarette? Was that a cigarette?
But Officer Ignacio, while he testified today, said that he didn't notice any of the passengers inside the vehicle because the windows were heavily tinted, kind of like a limo would be tinted, just very dark, so he couldn't see inside. but he said that he did catch a license plate number, and this license plate was for 6LKN013. He said he didn't pull the car over at this particular time because there was no crime at the time, but then he starts to kind of get into just what had happened once he's on Kid Cudi's property, that his partner jumped over a fence, let him in. He noticed the door was open, but no one was home. Then he had noticed some unwrapped gifts, which I thought was pretty interesting because Kid Cudi had testified that these gifts were wrapped when he was testifying last week that these gifts.
Wait a minute now. We just seen Cudi smoking a cigarette. How would you rate this drawing? It's not that bad. I didn't think his nose was that wide in the other pictures, but I do kind of think that I'm faded hopping. Hoping this kid got a kid. Wait, what? Why people always come in and chat with this nonsense, bro? It's good to have trolls, but it's just to the extreme every time. Every time. Y'all report them and ban them if you want to. I just don't understand. And I'm not controlling y'all. Say something, it automatically pops up with Tyler just wilding.
Were wrapped, and then when he came home that these gifts were unwrapped. They were in the kitchen area, and then more detectives kind of arrived and searched the area. But I think one thing that was pretty interesting that stood out to me during Christopher Ignacio's testimony is that he didn't mention the dog, and I think the dog was kind of a big thing according to Kid Cudi, because
my
Kid
man
Cudi had
Jay Harris in the building,
he
man.
normally lets his dog kind of roam around. However, when he returned home for this break-in, that his dog was locked in the bathroom, and his dog was jumpy and nervous after this incident.
This Diddy trial, trying to get the update on this Diddy trial
tonight. Wasn't discussed today during testimony, which I found pretty interesting. So as far as Officer Ignacio, he had said that they had exited the home and noticed that same
we still on plan,
coming back
trying to build this organic following.
Driving a lot slower, around 10 to 15 miles per hour, which I think also kind of goes to Capricorn Clark's testimony, right? Because she was explaining that while in that Escalade with Diddy and Ruben, the security guard, that they had chased down Kid Cudi once they saw that he was coming back down to his home. And I think this kind of helped verify a little bit that possibly maybe this did happen. And obviously during the cross there was kind of...
It's disrespectful if they drew her tracks that far out or her part that wide and it wasn't that wide for real. Because if her track was lifting up in court like that and they drew that on, that's very disrespectful. Because they could have just sealed that whole thing up. They didn't have to separate that. Let's be for real.
Holes poked into that specific aspect.
That's so wild.
Later, Kid Cudi arrives to the home. Officer Ignacio under cross kind of explained
that's
that
so
Kid Cudi was
crazy.
pretty flustered by this incident, but I think kind of the
this
biggest
whole
moment where there were two big
man.
moments. One, that this was a trespass report, so it wasn't reported as a burglary, it wasn't reported as a robbery, it was just simple trespassing. But he said that he entered this license plate of the black Escalade into the system. So then we see an exhibit photo, and this is where the direct examination kind of ends. We see this DMV vehicle registration information for that same license plate number that I had just said, and it was registered not to Sean Combs particularly, not to Capricorn Clark, not to Ruben, but it was registered actually to Bad Boy Productions. And then the direct examination ends. So I think a lot of people, including myself, were just kind of like, wow, this car was registered to Bad Boy.
That's a bombshell.
Yeah,
That's
that's crazy. I'm trying to get this right. My bad,
Sean
y'all. They switching camera angles. I ain't got no people on the
particularly when
ground.
you're talking about a racketeering
That's crazy.
conspiracy, he can't do it alone. The allegation is that
That's
he used his
crazy.
associates
Diddy
and bodyguards
had
to facilitate crimes and cover them up. If
the
you have a
Diddy.
car-
They say that Diddy had on.
My name is Adam Ferrari, the Chief
I
Executive
still ain't got
Officer of
YouTube
Phoenix
yet.
Energy.
We
I
gonna
look
be
forward
there.
to you joining.
that's registered.
Hold on. Some people saying Diddy had LAPD on payroll. That's crazy. That's absolutely wild, because this Rico shit, they could have finally uncovered it all. It started with Cassie. It went to the escorts. We had Kid Cudi car being blown up in the side. Wait a minute, the LAPD in on this too? Listen, even though Trump pardoned NBA Youngboy, he may not pardon Diddy if it was this damn deep. Because they got Diddy out here like he Frank Lucas for real. Like when we seen American Gangster the first time, we like, damn, we heard of Nicky Barnes, we heard these other gangsters, but Diddy could really go down as a gangster if he had LAPD on payroll. I ain't even gonna hold you.
to bad boy.
Not for 1
at
second.
the scene of a break-in, burglary, trespassing, what you want to call it. That
You got a whole police agency on payroll? That's crazy.
Makes this a lot more digestible for the jury. So it's a big, big moment. And by the way, Capricorn Clark being in that car goes to the kidnapping, which is one of the predicate crimes that the prosecution is hoping to prove in order to convict Sean Combs of racketeering conspiracy. So obviously a big witness, Mr. Ignacio. The cross-examination by the defense was interesting. Talk to us about who conducted the cross and where exactly were they going? What did they say?
Oh, yeah. Well, who conducted the cross? It was none other than Brian Steele himself. So he was really kind of back in his element, really cross-examining Christopher Ignacio. And so right off the bat, Brian Steele goes in and is like, well, this incident happened 13 and a half years ago. You need your memory refreshed, right? Officer Ignacio responds, yes. This case had no value to you until you appeared in court. Officer Ignacio agreed. And then later they kind of talk about the report, that the report was made by his partner, which Ignacio kind of verified. So Steele was coming off just a little bit aggressive during this cross-examination, or maybe he was just truly in his element, kind of coming off super confident while cross-examining this police officer. And so then we get into a map of Kid Cudi's
I just dropped a
home,
new
and this is
poll
kind
in
of
the
like a
chat for
generic
y'all.
Google Map exhibit, and I think
Because, hold on, I got to
it
get
was
to a good
interesting that the
section.
defense was kind of trying to point out just where Kid Cudi's home lied in the Hollywood Hills, just as far as the route that people would take, kind of implying that maybe this Escalade just got caught at a dead end, because there were a lot of dead ends over there, according to the defense. And so I think the defense was definitely.
If they remake this, because there's no cameras in the courtroom, you know Tyler Perry them gonna have a good shot at remaking this movie. But the documentary to me is honestly to say, who will make the best one? Tubi is already winning. I kind of like Netflix, but we really have to see. I'm trying to understand who would have the best documentary from this, and I don't mean like the R. Kelly scandal. I mean like the reenactment. Who would play Kid Cudi?
Trying to play up
Tubi
that
would probably be faster
it's
than
possible
everybody,
that
be honest.
this black Escalade, or who might have
don't care
allegedly
on
been
Tubi.
inside this car, caught at a dead end, and maybe that's the reason that he had seen the black Escalade once again. But
Which, by the way, is something to say.
Yes, exactly.
Right? So a car registered to Sean Combs. Oh, it wasn't stopped there. It just happened.
Yeah, it just happened to be
in the
at Kid Cudi's home
this time.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, he's
Maybe
not
he got
charged
caught at a
with
dead
assault. I
end.
heard.
And then
I think they
it was
charged him with
interesting too,
RICO.
because even when Brian Steele was on the stand, he was like, "Did you see a black Porsche?" Because he calls a Porsche next to an Escalade, and Ignacio responds, "I don't remember. Did you see a car chase? Or you didn't see a car chase, did you?" And Ignacio responded, "No, he didn't." He asked if a gun was involved. Would you have included that in your report? Ignacio responded, "Yes." "No one told you about a firearm?" And Ignacio responded, "True. The homeowner didn't mention a gun." The homeowner obviously being Scott Mescudi, aka Kid Cudi.
And by the way, this is all because these are things that Capricorn Clark and Kid Cudi had kind of testified to, right?
Yes, exactly. And especially with Capricorn Clark's testimony specifically. But I think, just kind of thinking about it possibly from a juror perspective, that if there was kind of this discussion on not to report it to police, not to say who was behind this, maybe that kind of may have explained why there was no talk about a firearm. But according to Ignacio, if there was a firearm that was mentioned, it definitely would have been included in the report. But again, Officer Ignacio wasn't the one who completed the report. It was actually his partner. He was asked whether or not he had heard about a kidnapping in the matter, and he said that he didn't hear about this kidnapping and that no one disturbed the property, and he responded no, which I think is interesting too, because if you talk about the dog being locked in the closet, I think that's kind of a disruption of the property, but that's neither here nor there. And then
We ain't trying to hear all that, love.
There are no bullet
we don't
holes
care
in the
nothing about
wall,
that, my
and
love.
he responded yes.
Being
And asking whether or not that he could have put out a BOLO report, to be on the lookout for this black Escalade, and they didn't do a BOLO alert. There wasn't any mention of threat to kill, and Ignacio confirmed that's true. And as far as mentions just of security cameras, obviously this is a big rap star at the time, still a rap star even today, and even Kid Cudi was talking about how his camera.
Kid Cudi was a well-known rap star. I wouldn't say he was a big rap star. He only had one good album, for real, if we being frank. Hey, Lemon Tree. So let's not conflate this. Kid Cudi, day and night. After that first album, he was like, damn, he started hot. Then he was C plus B minus celebrity. No lie. The last album's been kind of blah. So quietly, we need to take that big celebrity piece. He was average. He was like LaMelo Ball. Just an average ass. Because compared to Anthony Edwards and Shea Gill, great to start. But he's like the Melo of the rap game. And Diddy decided to blow up LaMelo car and get blown up. And I don't even think LaMelo's a fair comparison because Kid Cudi could be like more like Mike Miller, but he's black. So I don't know who else, because Mike Miller was more of like a role player. So maybe I would say Lou Will, but Lou Will got buckets. So maybe like a Montrezl Harrell. Kid Cudi was like the Montrezl Harrell. You feel me? I think that's fair. Kid Cudi was a Montrezl Harrell of the rap game, right? So let's not give him Draymond at least. He's Montrezl. He was Montrezl. So let's not boost the ego of these celebrities. Because just get back to it.
Cameras were repositioned during this break-in, but
I just don't see it, no.
Ignacio had said they had asked actually Kid Cudi to provide this footage. And so
oh shit, my
There are
bad.
quesadillas, and then there's Zaxby's giant chicken finger quesadillas. Back with their famous chicken.
So then Jimenez said that he didn't recall when the report came back. We see another exhibit photo of the glass
Wait a
bottle.
minute, I messed up, y'all. Rookie mistake. I think we was at the earring. Yeah, this is where we was.
Ignacio
I was gonna pause it here because Jordan is the only man that they say could wear a hoop earring with the one. Just a different generation, I'm 90s baby.
who had said they had asked actually Kid Cudi to provide this footage. They saw the cameras, but there was no filming of this incident. And so Ignacio explained that Kid Cudi, when he was responding to his home break-in, that he was a little flustered. And then they ended the cross-examination with just the time frame of when this dispatch call came in. So as we know from Kid Cudi's testimony, he explained that Cassie had called him around 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning, and the call for the dispatch for police didn't come in until 8:20, and so they ended the cross-examination there. There was no redirect, and the witness was off the stand.
Seems like they're trying to downplay what the severity of it, trying to get into inconsistencies about what was happening. It's an interesting level of cross-examination. And then we went into something else. So you move on from the break-in or the alleged break-in to now the alleged arson, right? This is Kid Cudi's car being set on fire again as a form of retaliation against Kid Cudi by Sean Combs. And by the way, just as a
that's some Call of Duty shit that I would
said
do
this on
for
a live show, and I'm going to say it here. If you're dealing with racketeering conspiracy, prosecution doesn't have to prove that Diddy's literal or figurative fingerprints are in any of this. The Mafia Don is not going to have his fingerprints on the gun. It doesn't even necessarily be that Combs has to be there during the break-in. It's, did he order it? Did he aid and abet it? Was there an agreement to move forward with this? That's what we're talking about. So,
unless Diddy had somebody around him doing all this on their own without his knowledge, like a deflate gate. But I don't know. To be real, after Trump pardoned NBA Youngboy, we're gonna get into that later. I think Diddy could get off even if he gets convicted. That Trump may pardon this boy.
We'll keep that in mind as we talk about this, which is now Lance Jimenez, this Los Angeles Fire Department investigator, responded to Cudi's home about a fire, right? A fire, his car being set on fire. Talk to us about that response.
Yeah, so the response for the Molotov cocktail lodged into Kid Cudi's Porsche happened on January 9th of 2012. So this was a couple of weeks after the break-in. And arson investigator Lance Jimenez said that he responded to a call of an auto fire, essentially, and it was around 11 o'clock that day.
There was internet back then, though. Why didn't that make bigger headlines? like a car gets blown up and it doesn't make any kind of news, or people just didn't care because it was a celebrity, or it's like nobody investigated. You don't think Trump will pardon Diddy? He
and then dispatch
NBA
told him that
Youngboy.
there was an auto fire in the driveway of the, we see that it's Kid Cudi's address. We know it's Kid Cudi's home. And so while Jimenez is on the stand, he's kind of describing kind of the same way other witnesses have described Kid Cudi's neighborhood around that time, that it was an affluent area. It's not necessarily a place where you see a Molotov cocktail, let alone even a car bomb essentially going off in just this quiet family neighborhood. And so he says when he observed, once he had arrived on scene, that he observed a car parked pretty close to the garage, and that car was the black Porsche 911. He said that when he arrived, he saw that this roof was cut out essentially, and then inside the Porsche was this burning pattern on the seats, on the interior, and then he saw the bottle in the front seat, and this was a glass bottle. He said that there was a burned handkerchief on the console, and his initial hypothesis was that the engine wasn't damaged, the back seats weren't damaged, the weather was good that day, so he didn't believe that this was something that was natural. And then he said that he had smelled gasoline coming from that glass bottle, so he
Yeah, Diddy did that. Just off the bottle alone. I said a little while ago, I'm a 90s baby, like, bruh, who drinking OE? If you drinking OE in 20 whenever, it was Diddy. If you don't know what Old English is, I'm gonna need you to go watch an old Snoop Dogg video back in the 90s when they first broke. This has 90s written all over it. This has Diddy written all over it. I'm sorry, I didn't see the bottle. When they said Molotov at first, I'm thinking, oh, okay, Call of Duty. I'm not thinking OE. Diddy did it.
Believed it to be a Molotov cocktail. He said he didn't observe any type of windows being broken, and so he believed that the burn patterns kind of pointed to one that being lodged into the roof, but also that the roof was cut out, making this a little more intentional. And so he believed that as far as just how this all came about, that someone took this glass bottle, it was this malt liquor bottle, it was glass, put gasoline into this bottle, put cloth over this bottle, and it was kind of this silky designer handkerchief that he had pointed out, cut the roof open, the cloth fell out, and the fire was essentially contained to the car, and it could have been a lot worse. But we saw just a number of exhibits where we see everything from Kid Cudi's front door to his driveway. We see where the black Porsche was burned. We see the car roof. And again, Officer Jimenez, or Investigator Lance Jimenez, saying that he believed that this cut was intentional out of the roof. We see the glass bottle. We see the handkerchief out of this clothy material. We see smoke and soot damage. We see looking kind of at the roof from the interior, we see minor burn patterns. We see a splash pattern from the bottle. The bottle was a 40-ounce malt liquor, Old English 800 bottle, which I thought was pretty interesting. And this glass bottle still had gasoline in it. And so we see a close-up of the bottle. We see the container where they had poured the gasoline into it with the fluid in it because the container wasn't at the scene, and so they had to transfer it to preserve it, to test it, that type of thing. We see a lighter on the scene, and that was adjacent to the Porsche, and it was this kind of red disposable lighter. We see the handkerchief material, and I thought it was interesting. He was pointing out that this handkerchief particularly was a kind of a designer handkerchief. And then he was talking a little bit about the DNA results. And so he was saying that there were no results on the lighter, the cloth, but there was partial DNA found on the bottle. And this partial DNA, as they kept kind of pointing out, was the DNA profile of a female. And when they talked about the female DNA profile being on this bottle, Diddy was actually kind of nodding his head along, I think also kind of verifying, okay, it's not male DNA, so people can't think it's me, it's female DNA. But the thing is, the report ended up coming back that the liquid was gasoline and that they had requested fingerprints on both the bottle and the lighter, but they didn't take fingerprints on the scene. LAPD actually did. So
isn't that a little suspicious? This just sounds kind of crazy. And Diddy nodding is like, yeah. I'm not tied to this. I know who it is. And it's like, bruh, I think Diddy actually did it. We know Diddy did it. The OE confirmed he did it.
Investigator Lance Jimenez, who works for LAFD, LAPD, was the one who had taken the fingerprints. But it's interesting, he had said that the victim in this case, the victim being Kid Cudi, had someone do fingerprints after the break-in that he had at his home. And that was just a couple weeks earlier. He submitted this fingerprint card over to officials, and the fingerprint cards were destroyed, actually. And the investigator Jimenez didn't know why they were destroyed necessarily. And so the government asked, did you find this unusual? Has you seen evidence destroyed? And then there was this huge objection. The defense did not like where this was going, because I think it kind of implied that maybe Diddy had somebody within LAPD kind of get rid of this evidence, destroy this evidence. Then there was a huge sidebar. It lasted for a few minutes.
Before we even get into that,
yeah,
I saw some reporting indicated that a LAPD officer had destroyed the fingerprint card. Is that inaccurate?
Every month, this Airbnb pays me in semi-passive income.
My bad, y'all. I apologize to y'all for this. I just need to pay for this.
I don't own it, and I don't pay.
We're going to skip it for now.
No, that's not inaccurate. And LAPD did destroy the fingerprint card. It wasn't ordered by Officer Jimenez.
We just don't know
Investigator
why. We just don't know why that would have been.
We don't know why it was. And so that was the big moment that they were talking about. Where it's like, why was this evidence destroyed? Right. And why did it go away? Why was this so unusual? And have you seen anything like this before? And Jimenez said this wasn't his call to make.
So now it goes into sidebar. Obviously, there's a big objection. What happened during the sidebar?
Well, the sidebar.
So meaning the jury's not there?
Yeah. Well, actually, the jury is there for the sidebar. So then we hear this.
Interesting.
Yeah, we hear this loud kind of staticky noise going off. So we're not hearing what both parties are talking about. However, there's a court reporter over there kind of transcribing everything. And so the sidebar lasted for a few minutes. And I myself was wondering what's going on. So I know the jury must have been wondering what is about to happen, what's going on. Then all of a sudden there's a break. They take pretty much like a nice long morning break, I should say. And then there were a lot of arguments outside of the jury.
That's what I was confused. So I know they went to a break.
Yes.
And that's where it really heated up between
to me, when you hear about, okay, cool, let me straighten them out a little bit. Get them some FaceTime, you know, since I'm using a stream to get the context for my stream, right? You know, got to be a little respectful. I'm a small channel. But to be honest, it's just suspicious that all this shit would disappear. That's like the power of this from the RICO, from Diddy. It's like, wait, that's wild to me. But either way, if it's your first time here, I'm the hip hop lobbyist. Thank you for tapping in the channel with me tonight. This is an unscheduled stream. We still don't have a schedule yet. I think my boy Diddy was here. Diddy, if you're still here, just tap in with me real quick. Let me know. My dog in Memphis, Republican. I'm a Democrat, but we still get along. We make it happen. But either way, I appreciate y'all tapping in for the stream tonight. If it again is your first time here, I'm just sharing my political commentary. And a bit of it tonight is the Diddy trial, because this is very interesting. Seeing what happens. We'll get into the pardons from President Trump and also see what else is going on in the world. I'm actually going to talk about Elon next. Actually, we're going to divert from this before we get to NBA Youngboy, because Elon's supposed to be leaving the administration. And I feel a part of it is because of the South African fiasco with the genocide of farmers, which realistically, look at the chessboard. The president of South Africa brought his administration over. They sat there and watched the video, and they kind of exposed the fact that if y'all being lied to by Elon, in more professional words. But either way, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. We're still building this thing out. I started streaming vertically, and I realized some people may be going to bed in their car all over the world, tapping in with the stream, and we're just here together. So thank you for tapping in with your boy. I probably need to say another word and get some water. But no water here. I'm gonna get up in a second. But well, let's get back to this. But I do think it's quite interesting that the evidence was destroyed. Yeah.
And the judge wasn't happy.
Oh, the judge was not happy at all. And so the government was trying to argue essentially that they were entitled to know what the steps were taken in this investigation, because they knew the defense was going to kind of attack the credibility of the investigation. And
Ring, make it ring, girl, make
y'all got it. Y'all wild enough.
Apartment 2B?
2B. She's
Essentially, they were saying that the outcome of the destruction of fingerprints means that no further steps were taken. The judge says that he didn't think it was necessarily that there was prejudice going on. However, Mark Agnifilo goes up there and he's giving his argument, and he's saying it's absolutely prejudicial. He said what the government has done is outrageous, and he made a note to say that he doesn't call things outrageous very often.
I appreciate you, Sis Black.
Very upset. He said that the government was implying that someone within the courtroom was essentially having something to do with the destruction of his fingerprints. I think he was kind of insinuating that he meant his client for the most part. And the government kind of came back and they were like, the defense is going to attack the credibility of the investigation. Investigator Jimenez didn't authorize the destruction of the fingerprint card. This is an important fact for the jury to consider, and it's absolutely relevant. So then I think tensions were a little hot during this moment. So then we take another break, and this is for all parties.
That's what the chat says.
Prosecution, us in the gallery.
Strong numbers on that.
So
66% say no.
Break. The judge said that he will strike from the record the fingerprint card and the destruction of them, and that the jury will disregard it. But Shapiro stood up, and it's interesting sometimes, Jesse, because sometimes it's not the same attorney always making these arguments outside the presence of the jury. Sometimes you have Estevao chiming in, or Estevao chiming in. You have Donaldson chiming in. You have Shapiro chiming in. You have Agnifilo chiming in. Sometimes you just never know where it's going to go. But in this case, Shapiro stands up. Alexandra Shapiro stands up, and she says, we're moving for a mistrial for prosecutorial misconduct. And I was just like, oh my goodness. And so she was explaining there's this conspiracy theory that Mr. Combs can buy his way out of charges. So they were kind of even taking it back to jury selection.
Right, because that's what prospective jurors had said.
Exactly. And so she had said that the government asked questions about authorizing destruction of fingerprints. She said there's no way to unring this bell, even if the record is struck, because the jury might still remember it even now. I remember it very clearly, very vividly. And so the defense is kind of arguing that the government should have stopped when they just said that the fingerprint cards were destroyed. They should have just stopped there. They shouldn't have continued insinuating in a way that they were ordered to be destroyed by a particular someone. And so the government comes back. They say no prejudice.
Bruh, if your car was blown up in your driveway, Molotov cocktail, and it could be the Miami PD, Houston PD, Atlanta PD, New York PD, damn, Tucson, Arizona PD, right? If the fingerprints disappear, wouldn't anybody be like, what are we talking about? Anybody would be interested in that. And I don't care if it's a Porsche, your Honda, or your Hyundai, or your Kia. It's a fact of like, listen, if it blows up, you're going to care. Let's be for real. Just another Matt, what's going on?
There was no prejudice.
I know, bro. You see how they did it?
Or would cause a mistrial, and that the government needed.
That's the funniest part to me. It's like, bro. Let me stop. Let me get back to it.
To elicit this testimony about the fingerprints, and they said that they came to a resolution that they're okay with it just being struck from the record. And so the judge denied the application for a mistrial and said that the jury will just disregard the statements from the attorneys as evidence, and will disregard the statements made by Officer Lance Jimenez, or excuse me, Investigator Lance Jimenez.
And that's what he did. He told the jury to disregard it. Easier said than done. We'll see if they disregard it.
Wow,
you also have to wonder if the
with them too.
Make that connection that the defense made about, who might have been responsible or behind the evidence being destroyed. And by the way, there might not be anything nefarious about this. Jimenez was cross-examined, though, by the defense. What were some of the highlights there?
Yeah, so he was cross-examined by Mark Agnifilo. And so starting off the bat, we kind of see the inside of the Porsche where you can see the bottle. They, of course, are going to touch upon the fact that this DNA profile came back as a female, and that's what Agnifilo went with. The report says it's female DNA on the bottle. Jimenez says, yes, you sent the glass bottle for DNA testing. He said he didn't. Jimenez didn't know who had actually sent this report in, and maintains that it was just a partial DNA profile that was found. And obviously that's kind of above me as far as DNA and just everything that works with that. But then the defense is asking whether or not they reached out to Capricorn Clark. And I thought maybe this was a moment they were going to try to insinuate that maybe she was the one who was behind, or maybe she was the one who had the partial DNA, female DNA profile on that bottle. And so then Jimenez said that he didn't recall when the report came back. We see another exhibit photo of the glass bottle inside the Porsche. And Agnifilo is asking about his opinion on whether the glass bottle was the cause of the fire, and Jimenez had, verified yes. And so there were other moments where you had seen a glove even in the back seat of the car. And it was interesting because I think the defense was implying that, why didn't you test this glove for DNA? Jimenez had said that he believed that the glove belonged to the owner of the vehicle, obviously the owner of the vehicle being Kid Cudi, so didn't think it was relevant or necessary to turn it back for evidence. But Mark Agnifilo was really like, well, where's the other glove? Do you know where the other glove is? And if the bottle is super hot, wouldn't you be the one using a glove if you were going to do something like this? And Jimenez kind of came back and said, well, not really. And Agnifilo was like, well, wouldn't the bottle be hot? And he said no, because the cloth would be on fire. And I felt like Agnifilo was trying to argue with a fire expert, an arson investigator.
Basically trying to make the idea that it was a sloppy investigation.
Yes.
You don't really know
exactly
who set fire to this car, and
yes,
let alone Sean Combs or an associate of his.
Yes, exactly. And so we're seeing more exhibit photos, kind of the same photos that we were seeing under direct, the roof cut out, Kid Cudi's Porsche a number of times, just whether or not if he could tell that the damage was from the heat and the heat actually rose from the vehicle. Then the defense kind of gets into Kid Cudi's other Porsche and whether or not the other Porsche should have been included in the report. And he said it wasn't relevant because this particular other Porsche was in the garage, and he said that it's like adding furniture in the home in the report, that it wasn't necessary for him to include that. And so I think as far as the cross ending, Agnifilo was really kind of honing in on who who investigator Jimenez had spoken to as far as just reaching out to as far as potential witnesses or suspects and that type of thing. And so investigator Jimenez did say that he had reached out to both Cassie and Capricorn Clark, because when Capricorn Clark had testified, she had said that she didn't respond to investigators' calls, something that Jimenez verified, that he called a bunch of times. He went over and did door knocking to her house. He had got a hold of her, in quotations, one time, and it was actually her brother who answered the phone, and her brother told investigator Jimenez to leave her alone, and that was just kind of where we got to just as far as Capricorn Clark is concerned. But as far as Cassie is concerned, it was the same thing, reaching out to her, trying to find her address. Investigator Jimenez said that he even got in touch with Cassie's father, and that Cassie's father was going to try to get her in touch with the investigator. But I think it also goes to show that no one was very cooperative in this investigation, something that I think also was verified under Capricorn Clark's testimony, Kid Cudi's testimony, where it was just kind of like, we're not going to talk about this with investigators. We're not going to talk about this with officials. We're going to keep our mouth shut and not cooperate with this investigation.
No, you go in my car, bro. I'm talking to everybody.
Because a big theme of this is, why didn't Cassie step forward? Why didn't she speak? Why didn't she report anything? And the idea is the power, the control, the influence, the resources of Sean Combs. Are you really going to go after him? I've said it before, I'll say it again. I think the testimony from Dawn Richard about her witnessing Cassie being beaten by Combs in front of high-powered celebrities and no one steps in, that's an important consideration if you think about what can Cassie do in that position, the power dynamic. So I wonder what the jury takes away from that. But okay, so it was a lot about Kid Cudi.
He's psycho.
But then we go on to another witness. So. We go on to this celebrity stylist, Deontay Nash, okay? Had been a stylist for Cassie and Combs. Now here's the thing. I'm reading the reporting of his testimony. And just me reading the transcript of the testimony, I could tell this guy has a ton of personality.
Yes, absolutely.
So what was his connection?
That's what
what did you take away from his testimony? What was he like? What was his vibe like?
Oh, his vibe was awesome, I think. He really, for the most part, he started off pretty funny. He makes this joke because we see this exhibit photo Deontay's headshot, and Deontay's explaining, yes, that's me, and that I look amazing. And this photo, the courtroom erupts with laughter. I think I even spotted Diddy kind of chuckling along too. It was a funny moment, but then it kind of got a lot more serious. And obviously, there were moments where they were talking about domestic violence or physical violence, from Diddy to Cassie.
He's drawn. Wait.
So after we had this funny moment in court, Deontay Nash was explaining just his work history, that he had styled Diddy and Cassie starting in 2008 all the way up until 2018. He started off as an intern for Derrick Rose, who was actually Diddy's stylist. While Deontay Nash is on the witness stand, he actually refers to Diddy not as Sean Combs or Sean or anything like that. He refers to him as Puff or Puffy, one of the many names that Diddy has gone by in the past.
He had his own nickname for him.
He worked with Diddy and Cassie from 2008 to 2018. And then from 2009 to 2018, he said he spent a lot of time with Cassie particularly, that they went everywhere together, that he actually is Cassie's best friend, and that they even talk to one another to this day. And so he testified that he saw Diddy and Cassie together at least once a week, so pretty frequently. But then he was asked some of the names that Diddy called her. And so he starts off with, baby girl, Cassie, Cass. But then he says that Diddy would refer to her as the B word and SLUT and sometimes a hoe, and that he used the B word often when describing Cassie. Deontay had said that was his favorite word to use. And so Deontay said that Cassie would get pretty sad and depressed about all the name calling. And then Deontay kind of goes into the threats that Diddy had made, where he had threatened to send Cassie's sex tapes to Cassie's parents, and not even just to Cassie's parents, but Cassie's parents' jobs.
That's some wild shit. Listen, I'm half Jamaican, so I'm half crazy. I could think of some crazy shit. But sending your sex tape to your parents' job is some diabolical shit. I need a refresher after that. I'm going to get a drink.
He threatened to beat Cassie's behind, and this drove Cassie crazy to the point where she was crying a lot. She would stay in the house for days, essentially cocoon up. He had said that Diddy had threatened to even do something to Cassie's parents. One thing is, they didn't elaborate what he threatened to do to Cassie's parents, so I'm wondering if it also kind of falls in line with threatening to report these things to Cassie's parents' jobs, make them lose their jobs. It was these types of really mean and horrible threats that essentially Diddy was doing to Cassie around this time. And so there were even points where Deontay and Cassie would go out partying together, like to the clubs and that type of thing.
And by the way, just to interrupt, the reason this is all important, other than establishing this pattern of criminal activity, is force, fraud, coercion, how he would induce her to engage in these freak-offs for purposes of sex trafficking, and understanding the context of it and understanding what her environment was like, again, goes to the idea, why didn't she step away? Because that was a big point of cross-examination. Why didn't you leave him? Why did you keep coming back, even though she disputed coming back? Why did you encourage freak-offs or set them up? This is just another witness who's testifying very consistently about that environment. Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, no, not at all. Go ahead. Yeah. But yeah, there were even points too where there was this one incident that happened at 2014 Vanity Fair party. And it's interesting too, because just hearing this trial, watching this trial like live in action, they really kind of go into the behind the scenes of the celebrity life. So they do things like go to red carpets and photo shoots and editorials and Vanity Fair parties, which is like the huge party that they do after the Oscars. And so at this particular event, Diddy had told Deontay, according to him while he was testifying, that Cassie's hair was the wrong way, that Cassie's hair was supposed to be up, it looked better for her look, and her hair was down. And it's interesting because Deontay on the stand said that Cassie's hair, the way it was originally, looked bomb. And so Diddy picked up Deontay angrily and even expressed just kind of violence sometimes towards Deontay, and that essentially Derrick Rose, that being Diddy's stylist, Diddy and Cassie all went to the bathroom, fixed her hair, for the result to be that Diddy actually ended up liking Cassie's hair down a lot better, something that they had originally done after they put her hair up. So then we get into Cassie's music and just that she was in the studio a lot. She was working towards the album, but Diddy would threaten to not release her music. We go for a lunch break. I chat with you for a little bit, then we come back, and then they go.
I'm gonna stop it for a second. Cassie ain't had no hits like that for real. Go to your Apple Music or your Spotify right now. It wasn't Diddy holding Cassie back. Didn't nobody want to hear that. Let's be for real. Now, outside of the escort stuff, everything else, beautiful young lady. caught up with the wrong people, clearly. But you was never gonna be Beyonce, baby. I'm sorry. For what it is, your star power wasn't there. Pretty, but A. Marie is Cassie to me. She just was dating Diddy.
More into the violence, just that Deontay had experienced.
By the way, financial control also part of the indictment. Right?
Yes.
That Combs would use that as a way to get what he wanted.
Yes.
Again, important for racketeering and sex
And then obviously the defense was going to poke holes into that, being like, oh, you know, and we'll get into this more, but that Cassie's music was still fine, that she was still recording with these big name artists, but we'll go more into that in just a second. But as far as just more of the violence that Deontay experienced, he said that there was a particular time where Mia, who we know will be testifying very soon, Mia is a pseudonym, but used to work for Diddy under his employment as an assistant, but that there was this moment where Deontay, Mia, and Cassie were all in Cassie's Los Angeles apartment. Mia and Deontay were over kind of helping Cassie pack for this music festival that she was going to do called OVO Fest. It's a music festival by Drake. Cassie was asleep, and then all of a sudden, Deontay heard a knock at the door, and so he answered the door, and it's Diddy. And that Diddy said the B word to Cassie and said, "Didn't I tell you to answer the phone?" Something that a lot of witnesses have testified to, saying that Diddy was very aggressive, essentially, whenever Cassie didn't answer her phone, and then he would respond, have other assistants respond, have security reach out to her, all of that. And so what Diddy did in response was he grabbed Cassie by the hair and hit her head, pulling her off of the couch to a place where she was sleeping. And then Cassie, Deontay, and Mia ran into the bedroom, essentially trying to escape. Deontay explained that he had jumped on Diddy's back to get Diddy off of Cassie, and that Diddy pushed him off, and then Deontay fell to the floor. Then Mia jumped on Diddy's back, and again, Mia's Diddy's assistant at this time.
This is crazy.
This is the first time that
you having a good night,
intervened, right?
Yeah.
And all the testimony that you've heard about her being subjected to physical abuse, this is the first time anybody tried to do allegedly.
Yeah, and not even beyond just stop, don't do this, I'm gonna call the police, like none of that. It was literally just like a physical, like, get off of my friend, get away from her, stop beating her up, that type of thing. And so it was pretty bad, this incident, because Cassie ended up hitting her head on the edge of the bed frame, and we all know how just kind of just the imagination of that the point where she hit her head, blood was drawn, you would think that Diddy would stop doing what he was doing at this moment, but according to Deontay, Diddy just kept on hitting her during this. So Mia ran, she grabbed some towels for Cassie's head.
I hate to say it, but that's a lot of domestic violence. But it's not RICO. But I'm no lawyer. The jury will decide, unless Diddy gets a mistrial, which they're shooting for, right?
Deontay said that he tried to call 911, but he said that someone had told him to hang up the phone. He wasn't sure who it was that had told him to hang up the phone, but I think that also kind of plays into just essentially people not going to the authorities out of fear that they'd be retaliated against, or something would happen to them if they were to report these incidents to police. So at the end of the day, D-Rock ended up taking, D-Rock is a name we've heard about a lot of times. He's a security guard, that D-Rock took Cassie to a plastic surgeon, and the next day Deontay had FaceTimed Cassie, and Cassie had stitches above her forehead.
There's a lot that he just testified to.
Yeah,
a lot of violence and threats. Didn't he say at some point, call Combs' bluff, right, regarding the threats to release the sex tapes? He talked about that, right?
He did. And another incident of violence where Deontay was over and Cassie was cooking, and they were having a good time, and then Diddy comes over. Diddy said, "Get the F out of my house," because Diddy, I guess, was paying for that apartment, and so he believed that this was his. And so Diddy had even kind of taken his anger out on Deontay, where according to Deontay,
Bro didn't make no other movements the whole trial. His hand was up there the whole time he was testifying. Like, they couldn't get another image of bro.
He popped him in the back of the head, and by popped he meant slapped Deontay in the back of the head, and he said that he had no hair to grab, and that's why he ended up getting smacked in the head. And so Deontay goes downstairs. Cassie ends up coming downstairs. Diddy's berating the both of them, and so Deontay and Cassie then drive off. Cassie's explaining to Deontay that Diddy was threatening to release sex tapes of her, sexually explicit videos of her, to her parents, and threatened their jobs, called Cassie's brother the B word, and Deontay said, well, girl, just let him release it. And that's where I say, like, he kind of plays up into the sassy
Called her brother the B word. Probably the BAN. I can't say it because I'm monetized on YouTube now. So you know what? I can't afford to have the advertisers mad. But if you look up with the B word first, and then the AN, that's not even worthy of testifying about. People get called bans every day. A man gets called a B word at least 5 million times a day in America. What are we talking about?
See kind of nature sometimes on his testimony and his testimony. But he was like, girl, let him release.
If YouTube.
The videos, he's on them too. Then Cassie responded, he's not on the videos. It's her with other men. And Deontay said that Cassie told him in that moment that she didn't want to be having sex with these other men. And I think that was kind of a big point to kind of drive home that this was forced or fraud or coerced for her to kind of be doing these freak offs, because this again was around the 2013-2014 time frame. And so essentially they hid out at a hotel, and then Diddy had followed them to this hotel, and he ended up bringing other people like his chief of staff at the time, that being Tony Fletcher, another person that being D-Rock, and that D-Rock and Tony Fletcher actually helped Cassie kind of escape out because Cassie threatened to jump.
A picture's worth 1,000 words. Because you hear all this and you see Diddy and it just changed your entire profile of what you thought he was 2-3 years ago versus today. Even in 2013, 2014.
Out of this hotel balcony, essentially, off of the, just off of where her hotel rooms at the time. And so Deontay was asked what floor this was on, and he was like, well, it wasn't the first floor, but he couldn't recall what floor it actually was on. And so I think that was just another moment of just what he had experienced while one being one of Cassie's very best friends, but also what it was like just seeing the inner workings of their relationship.
Now, I also understand something happened at this 2013 music video shoot too. What happened there?
Yeah, so again, to your point, it was around the 2013 timeframe. Cassie was filming this music video. Deontay said he was outside smoking the cigarette. Then all of a sudden, Diddy grabs him and chokes him out. That's what Deontay said. Diddy had allegedly told Deontay, I told y'all about going out.
Come on now. Come on now. I don't care if you gay, straight, black, white, Hispanic, whatever. You're not letting no man just pull up on you, choke you out. If Donald Trump, to my Republicans for real, if J.D. Vance pulled up on you and choked you out, you're not just going to stand there and not pull out the Second Amendment on his ass. Not even, sorry, that's the vice president. Let me take that back. If Jay-Z pulled up on you and choked you out, what are we talking about? I understand it's Diddy. Let me take the J.D. Vance part back, respectfully. I'll edit that part out. But you're not going to sit there and let some grown man, Tyler, not disrespect you. Gay, straight, whatever. And that's the part where it's like, bro, let's be for real. Let's be all the way for real.
Because Diddy didn't like when Cassie and Deontay went out without his permission. And Deontay explained that he was scared of retaliation from Diddy around this time. Again, he refers to Diddy as Puff. So he didn't report this particular incident to police, but he reported it to Derek, and he reported it to Christina. And then we see an exhibit photo of Christina, that being Christina Coram, aka KK, as some of the witnesses have called her, and that Christina said that she would talk to Diddy to stop him, but she didn't.
And there was also something about a 29th birthday?
A 29th birthday, yeah. And it was interesting because this particular birthday was also referenced in Cassie's now settled federal lawsuit, where Cassie just wanted to do karaoke with her friends. She just wanted to go out with her friends for her birthday, but Diddy wanted to surprise Cassie for her birthday that day. And then Deontay said something to the effect of, girl, you can't tell that man no, as far as why Diddy even showed up to that particular birthday, even though I don't think he was necessarily wanted. But Cassie told Deontay that Diddy wanted to do a freak off at a hotel, but she didn't want to go. Again, she just wanted to celebrate her birthday with her friends. So they end up going to a dinner. Then later they go to this karaoke bar, where even at the bar, according to Deontay, Diddy was yelling at Cassie. And then they later go to Cassie's apartment. It was Deontay, it was Bonna, another friend of Cassie's that we presume to be testifying in this trial sometime later on. And then another friend, we see an exhibit photo of Bonna. So Diddy all of a sudden comes over to Cassie's apartment and said, y'all are gonna get some D tonight. Cassie ended up packing a black duffel bag, and according to Deontay, this black duffel bag had cash, it had sex toys in it, and Cassie said she didn't want to go to this. She didn't want to go to the hotel with Diddy, and Cassie had relayed to Deontay that Diddy was making her do it. Deontay said that Cassie was super high during this, and that Diddy was also high during that night, but was also saying that Cassie was more intoxicated than Diddy that night. And so I think the government was trying to own up that Cassie might have been under the influence either of drugs or alcohol that night, but also that Diddy was too. But I think kind of the essence that they were trying to drive home was just that this was another moment where Cassie just didn't want to do this. She was pretty much forced to do this, that her boyfriend was making her do this, that type of thing.
So a constant state of threats and fear and violence. But the defense has always said that this is a case of a toxic relationship and domestic violence, and it doesn't amount to sex trafficking.
Right.
Is that what happened on cross-examination? I mean, what were they trying to hit upon when they had an opportunity to question Mr. Nash?
Well, sometimes, I'm not going to lie, when Xavier Donaldson does the cross-examination, I never know kind of where we're going. He is very kind of chauvinistic when he's in the courtroom.
And by the way, it is very interesting who they choose to cross-examine each witness,
absolutely.
right? I mean, you've talked about so many different attorneys today cross-examining different witnesses, so he did the cross of Nash.
Yes, he did the cross on...
Think all eggs are the same? Think again. Avian flu has impacted millions of caged and cage-free hens, but
Deontay Nash, and even just starting off, there was kind of a little sassy moment where Donaldson asked Deontay, good afternoon, and he just waits for a response, and then he says it again, good afternoon, and Deontay responds, how are you? And Donaldson says, I'm good, how are you? And Deontay responds, blessed. Then there was a little chuckle in the courtroom, and so you could see that there might have been some tense moments, but as far as where they really went with the cross-examination is, they right off the bat was asking, did you hire a lawyer to file civil claims against Diddy? He was also asked about going to the government meeting with prosecutors, and that Deontay had explained that he had went willingly and that he didn't hire a lawyer to investigate or to do civil claims against Diddy. And it feels like the defense is always trying to kind of claim that there might be civil litigation pending, but according to Deontay, that wasn't necessarily the case. So Deontay has shown this document that we don't see in the gap.
Let's be for real for a second, chat. I didn't mean to burp in y'all face. That look like Diddy to y'all? Does this look like Diddy to y'all? It's giving me Mike Tyson. Respectfully, it's giving me Mike Tyson right here. Do you see Diddy? Because we know bro over here is black and proud. This is James Brown for real. But this guy over here, he could be Blade. He looked like Blade. Could give me Wesley Snipes. It's not giving Diddy. I see Mike Tyson. Not Idris Elba, but one of them dudes from Snowfall. Yeah, he looked like Jamie Foxx. Yeah, he looked like Jamie Foxx. Jamie Foxx too. I don't see Diddy. I don't see Diddy. Again, I see James Brown. I see a little bit of Jesse Smollett. If you forget Gay Tupac, that was mugged by MAGA supporters in Chicago. I see a little bit of that. I see the gay guy who was fighting in Housewives of Atlanta. I gotta find that clip. If I find that clip, y'all gonna know who I'm talking about, because that's what he looks like. But this, I don't see Diddy. I don't see Diddy. 50 Cent, that could be 50 Cent. Doesn't it give you kind of 50 Cent? Like Get Rich or Die Trying, not the album, but the movie. You remember like the movie? Doesn't it give you 50 Cent, Free Diddy? Dwayne Wade, we getting Dwayne Wade, okay. I'm gonna find that clip from Housewives, so y'all can see. I'm gonna put this back on, and we gonna come. Y'all gonna find the clip of Buddy when he was fighting in Housewives, because I think this is the same guy. Let me get back to I'm gonna find it. Hold on.
Gallery. It was just shown to the parties and the witness in this case. And so Donaldson asked, so as of March 10th, 2025, you didn't retain counsel for civil claims against my client, Sean Combs. And Deontay maintained that he only has legal representation mainly because he knew he was going to be testifying. He didn't even want to be testifying for the most part, Jesse. He told me, or not told me, but he had told, he had testified that he was subpoenaed to testify and he really just didn't want to do it. And so then Donaldson asked, well, did you tell Ms. Comey that you had civil attorneys to pursue claims against Mr. Combs? Again, Deontay Nash pushing back saying no. Then all of a sudden we're seeing an exhibit photo of Cassie. And I feel like sometimes that the defense kind of tries to throw in these exhibit photos of Cassie on video shoots, on red carpets, doing editorial shoots to kind of show that she was successful just in her own right sometimes. But sometimes I never know just kind of why they bring it up in that particular instance.
I guess they're trying to say he wasn't really controlling, derailing her career as much as the prosecution would say. And I think there was testimony earlier in the week was she a hard worker? Was she talented? You know, was he controlling her career? She wasn't a success because of him? Just keep her as a sex slave? Or was it, you know, something of her own doing?
Exactly. And so there were times even that we saw exhibit photos of Cassie performing on stage. And pretty recently, around 2016-ish, Cassie even posing with Usher at a Bad Boy reunion tour. It was the 20th anniversary, and Deontay was explaining that he had styled Cassie for this tour. And then Deontay, it was interesting because there were times where Xavier Donaldson would be like, so Miss Ventura, and Deontay would be like, Miss Fine, because that is now her married name. And so there was a little tense moments with that. But then all of a sudden, Donaldson's asking just how Deontay Nash became a celebrity.
We're gonna stop. I done found the clip. Hold on, y'all. Is this guy? This guy?
Not
these guys. Hold on. In the red. In the red.
Don't you ever come at me like yo. You bitch. Hold on. Don't you?
Isn't that the same? That's not the same guy? Chat. Hold on, chat. Wait. I ain't trying to see this whole fight. Hold on.
What are you doing?
No, babe. Greg, take him out. Take him out. No.
This guy right here, I think, is that him? Because when I see him, I'm seeing this guy. Because maybe it is. Because here's the thing. Look. He said he jumped on Diddy back. I think this was that guy. And maybe in the Hollywood story, they knew this was a guy and they put him on here, and now he got to testify. This isn't the same guy. Is this the same person? Yes or no? Let me know in the chat. Because I think Cassie's stylist, who jumped on Diddy and then got choked out by Diddy, is also this guy. And this how I know he got choked out by Diddy. Don't see. Watch. Wait, watch. Diddy. Oh, Diddy. He can't fight Diddy again. Watch. Because if Diddy did him like that, you see how Apollo threw him down? Hold on. That's Diddy. Diddy's Apollo. This is the guy on the stand. That's Diddy choked. That's him. So if Diddy choked him out before, then this is the man in the red that's on the stand. That's the man that's on the stand.
Babe. Greg, take him out. Take him out. No.
What are you doing?
Oh yeah, Diddy. That's him and Diddy. That's him and Diddy. That's how I know.
Come back. I got you.
I got to get you something. Hold on, chat. Wait. You trying to tell me that's not him? Okay, let's get back to this.
celebrity stylist. You went from intern to styling these high profile people. Just how did that kind of come about? And so then they kind of get into, I think, what they were really trying to go for, where it was like, well, you would agree that artists of a particular label need to have their artists look their best at all times. And Deontay said yes. So you agree that the label had interest on how their artists looked, because Cassie was still signed to Bad Boy at the time. So Deontay said yes. And so I think the defense was trying to say that Diddy wasn't necessarily controlling her look. If there was any type of feedback on what she looked or how she presented herself, it was because it was coming from the label and not necessarily a controlling, manipulative boyfriend. And so then they start to kind of get into Cassie's music career a little bit, talking about.
My bad on that, y'all.
I can't help it if I'm popping, see them watch like
how much time that Deontay and Cassie spent in the studio together, because there was a lot of studio time, and that Donaldson was like, well, labels pay for the studio, right? Even though you said that you were there all the time, right? That means that Mr. Combs and Bad Boy were paying for this, and Cassie didn't pay because the label had interest in Cassie's music future. I think trying to point out that Bad Boy was still taking her music seriously. They were still in the studio a lot of times. Then they kind of get into Cassie modeling for this line called Young and Reckless. And that line is actually her friend Bonna's clothing line. Deontay said that Diddy, even though he had nothing to do with this fashion line, had to approve it and still had to even approve her look as she was modeling for her friend's clothing line. And I thought that was interesting that he had said that, because for the most part, you know, we always help out our friends, especially with business adventures. But even as somebody else is in control of their particular brand, their particular fashion business, that Diddy still had final say and approval just on how Cassie looked and represented herself. And so then right before we go to a break, Deontay is asked just about Cassie's music and just all the names and celebrities that were.
No, I'm gonna stop it there. We're gonna go to something else, but I'm gonna be real with you. Again, Cassie's music wasn't all that. We're gonna hear from one of the escorts before we get to the Trump stuff. Hold on.
Sheree Hayes is his real name and one of the few witnesses to give an uncensored look inside Diddy's freak-offs. In 2012, the exotic dancer allegedly received a call from a woman requesting a striptease for someone named Janet, aka Cassie Ventura, and her friends. Hayes says he believes Cassie found him through his getpunished.com website. And at their first meeting, Hayes said Cassie told him her and her husband liked to create a sexy scene, one that her husband would eventually come out to watch. And during that first encounter, Diddy allegedly gave mostly subtle directions. The compensation for that rendezvous, $2,000.
Wait, what?
Under cross-examination, Hayes testified that Cassie did not appear uncomfortable during their encounters. He, quote, did not get any cues that there was a discomfort with what was going on over the 8 to 12 interactions they all had. Sheree said, the Punisher, Hayes, joins me now, and he's also the author of In Search of Freezer Meat. He joins us now. Sheree, welcome. It's been a week since you testified. First of all, I'm just wondering what the reaction has been like in your life, knowing that this is such a high-profile case, and here you are in the spotlight in this way.
Yeah, it's been like a whirlwind.
No, Justin, I hear you.
Constant outreach from media outlets like this, and just friends and family, people from junior high school actually reaching out just randomly, you know, to check in and speak up. It's been a very interesting, trying week.
I ain't gonna hold you. If he ain't getting no girls in high school, that's why I've been hitting them up. Like, girl, I always thought you was cute. That's what they're doing. Bruh, I can't even know what I can say on YouTube. His rate skyrocketing right now. Oh, you was with Cassie and Diddy with the freak offs? He need to write a book, no lie, for men whose spouses have cheated on them, to share the other side, to be like, it's okay because Diddy did it. Diddy paid me to sleep with his lady, so you shouldn't leave your lady for cheating on you. Like, you know, that male escort perspective, because bruh, his stock skyrocketing, his OnlyFans finna take off. I'm not subscribing. But y'all let me know. Y'all subscribe to my channel. And then when y'all subscribe to his channel, y'all let me know, hey, bro, you was right. His page that took off. Don't tell me nothing. Don't share nothing. But you already know it. Bro doing this for the OnlyFans. He's like, bro, y'all ain't gonna embarrass me. That got me testifying. Got my picture out here in these streets. I'm gonna write me a book.
You've reflected, I think, in some time about what your testimony
My time inside Cassie and Diddy's lore.
said and what it was like in that courtroom.
Oh, God.
Can you tell me a little bit what it was like to be on that stand?
To be on the
a few feet away
stand.
from Sean Diddy Combs, who you obviously had.
What was it like? Nobody want to hear about that. I'm sorry. The people want to know in the tell-all book, no, like we said earlier, if they have like his documentary, imagine the first 20 minutes of the movie or telling his life story. It's like an hour and a half movie, right? Hour 45. Long enough to get you engaged, but not long enough for you to fall asleep. We don't want an Oscar. Whatever, right? It could be, I don't know if it'd be X-rated. So it maybe not on Netflix, maybe HBO, After Dark. First 20 minutes, you get to know the brother. Then the next hour and 15 minutes is straight freak off scenes. 10 of them? That's at least 10 different, like, bro. That'll be a wild Tubi movie.
Had been around before in these sexual encounters, but he was more of a voyeur at those times.
Sound of Freedom
being
movie.
in the room in the
I suppose all of it.
Yeah, so I have to say, I thought going into it, I was pretty prepared and confident, but literally when I walked in the room, I got complete anxiety. Like my
Is he talking about the courtroom or Diddy? Pause.
entire body was shaking. Whatever I envisioned or what I thought, because obviously you can't see anything, it was the tension and the magnitude of the moment was much, much deeper. So it was to some degree terrifying. Like I just could not, whatever I envisioned, it was just so much more that I was not mentally prepared.
You know, I mentioned that he was a voyeur during the sexual encounters. You were involved with Cassie Ventura directly in those rooms, as you've testified. Were you ever involved with Sean Diddy Combs? Did you two ever have an interaction in those sexual encounters?
No, actually, not one conversation, not even eye contact.
Really?
Yeah.
Did that surprise you?
Well, it was told to me immediately, like on the first encounter, that I was instructed to not look at him, not acknowledge him, not have any interactions with
By Cassie?
Yeah, by Cassie. So those were the instructions. So I did my best to follow them to the best of my ability because, you know, initially I did not know who they were. And so I just saw it as an opportunity. I see this stunningly beautiful woman and, you know, $2,000 for this type of interaction was, you know, kind of like a no-brainer in terms of it. So I wanted to follow the directions as much as possible. So there was literally no interaction, I didn't even look directly at him.
Because normally you are a dancer, and this was an interaction that would have resulted in sexual intercourse.
They say he a dancer? This is wild.
So,
I need to start watching CNN
this
more.
is nuance. It's not something that happens. You know, I've done thousands of parties. This is the only time I was propositioned with something like this, and it was in such magnitude. Like we're in the Trump Hotel, it's like these huge suites, and you can tell this is a very high-profile couple. So I just wanted to be as professional for the scenario as I would assume.
I don't know if it's legal,
Did you ever
but
travel
clearly.
outside of New York with them?
I did not.
When you were engaged in this encounter and intimate with Cassie Ventura, as you've said on the stand, you were asked about whether you had any notice or any idea how she felt about the interaction, whether she was consenting, whether she was uncomfortable in any way. You testified you did not feel as though she was uncomfortable at all. Can you explain?
Yeah, so there was always, like, before the sexual activity, there was always, like, downtime. So I would be greeted by Cassie, kind of put in a room, and we would have casual conversation, you know.
About how long would that last?
Okay.
10, 15 minutes, you know, and it would be, you know, consistent. How's work going? How's the parties? How's things? So it seemed like a very cordial, laid-back situation, and I actually believed that the scenario was real. It was like her birthday. This was something they were doing as a couple that wasn't normal. I mean, that wasn't their norm. And I honestly thought I was the only person they were engaging with. So I had almost a
Oh, he
belief that I was, wow, like this is a cool
that's
thing.
what
Like
this
I'm the
is.
person they're choosing for this.
That's what this is. He thought he was the only one. Now he done went in court and got embarrassed by everybody and got exposed. So now he got to go tell the world that basically, like, you know what? Yeah, I was part of this love triangle. So he telling his truth. He about to get a book deal in the movie. The movie is about to be released on Tubi. By at least his version will be out Thanksgiving. Because they're not gonna let the story die.
Kind of fetish type of environment, and
nothing seemed illegal to you or anything out of sorts.
Not even close. Like I didn't even get any thought of anybody being like under the influence of any drugs or anything. It seems like a very, for the circumstance, everybody was just normally in their right state of mind, and this was just something they did for sexual pleasure.
You never saw any violence?
Nothing close.
You know, interestingly, you say you haven't seen any violence, you didn't see anyone under the influence of drugs, and you didn't have any idea that she was
what about the baby oil?
Not consenting in some way. Why do you think you were called to testify?
I'm still trying to figure that out. Like it's after the fact. I'm the only thing that I can kind of maybe think is, you know, there was directions, right? It was in my testimony. It was clear that it was him, I guess, somewhat in control. You know, not overbearingly. I mean, it was said to me this scene we were creating was for her husband, aka him. So the only thing I can say is maybe they were trying to show another element of control. And even though in my case it wasn't forceful or aggressive, but it's still another dynamic that maybe they were trying to establish.
Did you ever see cameras or anything being filmed?
I did not. The rooms were always extremely dim and dark, just candlelit. So it was, if there were cameras, it would have to be some sort of infrared low light scenario because it was very dark in there.
Who paid you?
Always Cassie.
Did you ever see where the money came from?
I did not. Only one time, like I said in my testimony, we were actually engaging in sexual activity, and he threw a stack of $100 bills on the bed. That Cassie turned to him and asked him was everything was fine, and he just said, I'm enjoying it, in so many words. And I know that money was collected after the fact and given to me. So that would be the only scenario where I guess money came directly from him by way of, you know, slamming it on the bed, like almost like how somebody would do at like at a strip club.
That's wild, man. I've had enough Diddy trial tonight. Because Diddy trial will just have you thinking all kind of crazy shit because I don't know. Is this hold on, just in case. It could be something
You've
else.
reflected back on your testimony. Do you think that your testimony was helpful to the prosecution or the defense in any way?
I mean, going into it, I always thought that because I saw no violence or any
she asked that question.
aggression, I always wondered if this was more beneficial to the defense. But I don't understand the angle of how they're trying to take my testimony and connect it to what they're trying to prove. You know, it's very nuanced what constitutes a RICO and racketeering, and I don't know enough yet. I haven't heard enough to see if my testimony aligns with what they're trying to prove.
One thing that Cassie said on the stand was that she wanted Diddy to know that people were not disposable, and it almost sounded like she was talking collectively about everyone involved in these sexual encounters and these so-called freak-offs. Did you yourself ever feel as though you were either disposable or that you yourself were being trafficked in some way or prostituted?
Whether you're a professional technician or simply take...
Man's name is the Punisher. He was prostituted.
I'm not trafficked in some way or whatever. There was always pressure in terms of being disposable because obviously I'm there to create something, like a scene, to create an environment. So at times where there was sexual pressure, you know, because it's out of my norm, I did have a feeling of,
Jersey is wild.
I'm one
don't be the diddler
scenario where if I don't perform the right way, if I don't create the right ambiance, then maybe I won't get called back. But that's the most pressure that I had. There was no indication of I really believe they were just a happy couple, and this was a sexual fetish that they had.
Do you ever see them be affectionate during these freak-offs together?
I did not. They would never actually interact in front of me. There was like kind of a cue where if he needed to speak to her or have some sort of direction with her, he would just stand up and leave the room. And if she saw that, she would follow him out. They would be gone 5-10 minutes. Then she'll come back and we'll resume for the most part.
So it's like, you having too much fun. Need to get up out of here. And then she'll stop and then come back. Like, that's crazy. That's crazy. Something you only see on OnlyFans. And I don't subscribe to OnlyFans. I just hear it on Twitter.
But no interaction in front of me. No even conversation other than his directions, which were subtle: move the light, turn your body, maybe put more oil. Those type of gestures in communication. So he didn't look at her just basically, but he saw how they may call him back to the stand off this interview, bro, because you're trying to get a book sale. I think you may have fucked up.
You said you wanted to, after your testimony, feel at peace with what you've said. Knowing what you do now
it's not that hard.
What Cassie Ventura has said about how she's felt about these freak-offs, what would you say to her if you could?
I would apologize. I would apologize because I had no idea, no indication what she was going through. And if, obviously my involvement kind of furthered her suffering, so just me knowing that as a man, being raised by a single mom and a grandma, just the thought of partaking in a scenario where a woman is possibly being abused is tough to hear. So, I would just apologize to her and, tell her that was really.
I think for all the male escorts that are out there, at least, kind of separating the fact of, like, I may be doing this professionally, but I don't support sexual abuse and raping women. I signed up to, give people their fantasy, I guess. This is next. People love to see.
Thank you very much.
Our president.
So today we're honored to swear in Jeanine Pirro, somebody I've known for a long time, and she's an incredible person, an incredible woman, as our new interim United States Attorney for the District of Columbia. That's a big deal. And I'd like to congratulate Jeanine and her whole family. And we have Christine with us, and Alex, I know, is in a very, very important place right now. And the two children, but they're not children anymore. And I've heard that Christine, you're doing unbelievably well and very successful at a great law firm. So it's great to have you with us. Thank you very much. Over 5 decades, Jeanine Pirro, known by millions as Judge Jeanine, has devoted her life to the pursuit of justice, the defense of freedom, and the fair, equal, and impartial rule of law. And that's what she's about. She was a great DA. I remember her very well. She was as good as anybody I've seen. She began a career in 1975 as an assistant district attorney in Westchester County, New York, where she prosecuted violent crimes, and that was a serious prosecution. And she went after real criminals, not fake criminals like we seem to do today nowadays, people that shouldn't be prosecuted, including rape, murder, and was a tireless warrior on behalf of the most vulnerable people in our society. In that role, Jeanine helped create one of our country's first domestic violence bureaus. I think it was the first, Jeanine. And as its chief, she revolutionized victim protection and bold, innovative policies like very few people even thought of. In 1990, Jeanine became the first female judge in Westchester County history. And following the year, and by the way, very distinguished, had an unbelievable, distinguished career. And in the following years, she presided over numerous complex criminal cases. The reason they were complex is that other judges were not able to understand them. They were called the complex cases. My sister had them too. They always used to give her the complex cases because other people didn't understand them, including high-stakes felony narcotics trials. Her outstanding judicial record earned her the honor of being named the #1 judge in 1990 by the Independent Fund for Modern Courts. That's nationwide. Outstanding judge. The following year, Judge Jeanine was elected Westchester County District Attorney, became the top prosecutor for a jurisdiction that included some of the largest suburbs in New York City, including Yonkers and White Plains. It's a big deal. As District Attorney, Jeanine tackled high-profile violent crime cases and established one of the nation's most successful cybercrime units to combat online child abuse. She was way ahead of a lot of people. They still aren't there, if you get right down. I mean, from what I hear, they're still not there in many cases back there where we come from. In addition to her stellar legal career, Jeanine also excelled in news media as you know, and she's become one of the most beloved political figures through her time on television, because she's been very, very successful at a thing called television. She got out of what she was doing, and frankly, she does them both great, but she's really, to me, she'll always be known as a great lawyer and a great prosecutor, which is what she's doing now. So Jeanine Pirro, I have no doubt, will be an exceptional U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, one of the truly most important positions in our country, of any position, where she will restore public safety in our nation's capital, break up vicious street gangs and criminal networks, and ensure equal justice under the law. You'll see very, very big improvements in the D.C. area, that I can promise you. So I want to congratulate Jeanine. I want to congratulate you and Christine and your whole family on this undertaking. And as you know, Pam Bondi is doing an unbelievable job as our real leader in the fight against crime. And Pam heard about this, and Pam said, I'll have to find time for Jeanine. She doesn't have time to do this, but for Jeanine she did, and she's going to be doing the swearing in. So, Pam, thank you very much for the great job you're doing and for swearing in our friend.
Oh, Selena,
Justice
we get
Jeanine.
into it, man.
Good. Thank you.
Hold on, Selena. Wait a minute. It's a live stream. We started with the Diddy trial. We just got to Trump. We're going to get to the pardons of the NBA Youngboy and everything else. So it all comes together. I appreciate everybody tapping in. And if it's your first time here, make sure you like and subscribe. Because a couple of weeks ago, I only had 300 subs. And right now, we're almost at 1,800. So, Selena, if you happen to be one of the 200 plus people here tapping in for the stream, just tap in, subscribe, and like the channel. Because guess what? We're going to get to the NBA Youngboy stuff next. But you just happen to come in on this side of the stream. Appreciate you. We've been here for about almost 2 hours. But thank y'all for tapping in. Appreciate you, Andre. Jamila, appreciate you.
I do solemnly swear.
I, Jeanine Pirro, do solemnly swear.
That I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States.
That I will support and defend
Thanks, Brad.
the Constitution of the United States.
Against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
Against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
And that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same.
And that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same.
And that I take this obligation freely.
And that I take this obligation freely.
Without any mental reservation.
Without any mental reservation.
Or purpose of evasion.
Or purpose of evasion.
And that I will well and faithfully.
And that I will well and faithfully.
Discharge the duties.
Discharge the duties.
Of the office upon which I am about to enter.
Of the office upon which I am about to enter.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Dang, no. Everybody built like a box of cereal, dude.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Madam Attorney General, both my friends for many years. Long ago, I went to law school to study about justice and to bring justice to victims of violent crimes, women, children, and the elderly. I fought to give them a voice in a system that was both blind and deaf to their concerns. I dedicated my heart and soul to making sure that there was a system that responded to them. My profile and my prosecutorial successes garnered public attention, and my life took unexpected turns. Through all of this, President Trump, you have remained as steadfast as one of my earliest supporters and champions. You never wavered. You were always steadfast, trustworthy, and confident. Today, Mr. President, you bring me back to my roots. And it is a larger arena, but no less an arena where we need justice, where we need to send a message that justice will be honored in the District of Columbia. And just last week, here in our nation's capital, two people on the brink of beginning their life had hopes and dreams that were never realized because a cold-blooded murderer made a decision to shoot them down on the streets on a cold, rainy night in our nation's capital. This will not go without just accounting.
Byron tripping.
My voice should be heard loud and clear. No more tolerance of hatred, no more mercy for criminals. Violence will be addressed directly with the appropriate punishment. And this city will again become a shining city on a hill in an America that President Trump has promised to make great again and will make safe again. Mr. President, America thanks you, and I thank you.
Any questions for Janine? Any questions?
Oh boy.
Anything for Janine?
You just want to talk to him. I get it. Thank you.
She's going to be fantastic. Thank you very much.
Thank you all. Thank you.
There's no question because there's no doubt. We have no doubt you're going to be fantastic.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. President, Mr. President, Mr. President,
Yeah, please.
Mr. President.
On Russia, Mr. President?
Please.
Do you believe the Russians are being disrespectful when they say that your criticisms of Putin are simply an emotional response? And do you still believe that Putin actually wants to end the war?
I can't tell you that, but I'll let you know in about 2 weeks. Within 2 weeks, we're going to find out very soon. We're going to find out whether or not he's tapping us along or not. And if he is, we'll respond a little bit differently. But it'll take about a week and a half, 2 weeks. We have Mr. Witkoff is here, is doing a phenomenal job, is dealing with them very strongly right now. They seem to want to do something, but until the document is signed, I can't tell you. Nobody can. I can say this. I can say this, that I'm very disappointed at what happened a couple of nights now where people were killed in the middle of what you would call a negotiation. I'm very disappointed by that. Very, very disappointed. Yeah, please.
You've called for an end to the Gaza war. Given the growing humanitarian crisis and the decision of Prime Minister Netanyahu to extend the military operation, do you have any frustration with his handling of the situation of the war?
No, we're dealing with the whole situation in Gaza. We're getting food to the people of Gaza. It's been a very nasty situation, very nasty fight. October 7th was a very nasty day, the worst that I think I've ever seen. It was a horrible day, and people aren't going to forget that either. So we'll see how that all works out. And Steve, would you want to say a couple of words about Gaza because you just have some information? Steve Witkoff, do you want to come up for a second? You might give them a little bit of information as to what's happening with Gaza and also Israel. We're having some very good talks with Iran. We'll find out whether that means anything, but we're having good talks.
Congratulations. Well, hi everybody. I think that we are on the precipice of sending out a term sheet.
Thanks, Brad.
Hopefully will be delivered later on today. The president is going to review it, and I have some very good feelings about getting to a long-term resolution, temporary ceasefire, and a long-term resolution, a peaceful resolution of that conflict.
Mr. President, you said it's having to do with Iran. We're having very good talks with
Mr. President, you said yesterday that Putin is playing with fire. What will be the consequences for Russia?
Real quick, we knew Putin's playing with fire, but Zelensky warned us. Zelensky told us this would happen. And now we're here. But we're going to pardon NBA Youngboy to distract from the fact of, one, the tax bill isn't getting Republican support in the Senate. Since we're going to get there early, people mad why the headline doesn't match. It's okay. We have a distraction with NBA Youngboy because senators not agreeing with it. Elon's leaving. And right now we get a point of a month ago, they were saying, you know, Elon's going to stay. The rumors aren't there. A month later, after the South African genocide debacle, here's where we are. But let's finish this first, and we'll get into the rest of this. So my girl who's waiting for the NBA Youngboy news, hold tight.
If he continues to, if Russia continues.
Well, I'm not going to tell you exactly, but the words speak pretty loud. We're not happy about that situation. I think we're doing very well with Iran.
Exactly, it's all a distraction.
We're doing very well with Gaza, but we are doing very well with Iran, and I think we're going to see something very sensible, because there are only two outcomes. You know what the two outcomes is: a smart outcome and there's a violent outcome, and I don't think anybody wants to see the second. But I think we've made a lot of progress, and we'll see. You know, they still have to agree to the final stages of a document, but I think you could be very well surprised what happens there, and it'd be a great thing for them. They could have a great country into the future. Yeah.
Mr. President, Elon Musk in a television interview criticized the one big, beautiful bill, saying he was disappointed it didn't cut enough, essentially, that it undercut the Doge efforts. What's your reaction to that?
Well, the reaction's a lot of things. Number one, we have to get a lot of votes. We can't be cutting. You know, we need to get a lot of support, and we have a lot of support. We had to get it through the House. The House was. We have no Democrats. You know, if it's up to the Democrats, they'll take the 65% increase. You know, if that doesn't get approved, this country is going to have a 65% increase in taxes and lots of other problems, big problems, almost bigger than that. But we'll have a 65% increase as opposed to the largest tax cut in the history of our country. We will be negotiating that bill, and I'm not happy about certain aspects of it, but I'm thrilled by other aspects of it. That's the way they go. It's very big. It's the big, beautiful bill, but the beautiful is because of all of the things we have. The biggest thing being, I would say, the level of tax cutting that we're going to be doing. We're going to make people really be able to. We'll have the lowest tax rate we've ever had in the history of our country, and tremendous amounts of benefit are going to the middle-income people of our country, low and middle-income people of our country.
However you
So
vote.
we're going to see what happens, because the Senate, as you know, is negotiating with us, and they have to then go back to the House, and, you know, it's got a way to go. But I have to say, Speaker Johnson and Thune have done an incredible job. John Thune has done a fantastic job, and they're working together with me and others. And I think we have an amazing, if we pull this off, remember, we have 0 Democrat votes because they're bad people. There's something wrong with them. You know, they'll let people pour into our country. Single biggest problem is we had 21 million people pour into our country, probably higher than that. And they're people that weren't supposed to be here. And many of those people are bad. Murderers, drug dealers, the mentally insane. They were closing mental institutions all over the world, not South America, all over the world. They're coming into our country, and we're getting them out. And we're having a hard time because some judges aren't making it very easy for us, and it's tough enough. They approved that. They allowed that to happen to our country. We don't have one Democrat vote. And if I were a Democrat, I'd be voting for this bill, and I'd get elected to any position.
Here's a narrative for my good old Republicans out there. Hold on. For my good old people out there, just to hear the nonsense, right? I gotta zoom this out so y'all can see it. Hold on, so y'all can hear the narrative. Let me straighten this out for my people on the vertical stream. This is the current makeup of the U.S. Senate, right? This is the current makeup. So while the president is saying this, respectfully, Republicans are in control. How are you going to blame the 45 Democrats and the 2 independents from Vermont and Maine that caucus with the Democrats, so the 45 Democrats? How are we going to blame them when we have majority? Not we, I'm a Democrat. We as in Trump, the MAGA supporters. From Montana, Indiana, all the way down. All the way through Ohio, all these states that y'all promised, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Florida. for where you have representation. Why is it an issue? We'll get to that next before we get to NBA Youngboy, because that's what I want people to get out of is the narrative. The narrative of the nonsense. The nonsense will tell you, oh, it's the Democrats' fault. It's not the Democrats' fault. They have a majority. How are you going to blame the minority for something that is not there? They have everything in power to do this, right? Yes, they're working to turn California red. You can turn California red, but guess what? California not being red right now, let's go back and look at it. California not being red right now has nothing to do with the fact of them having a majority. 47 to 53. And not being able to do anything with it. You have Republicans that they're not calling out that aren't supporting this. That's the reality, if we want to be real. If we want to be for real. But let's get back to the president, because people want to take the narrative and blame the Democrats. You got to blame, if you're a New York Knicks fan, if you're a Minnesota Timberwolves fan right now, go blame the coach, go blame the system. You can't blame everything else.
Position I want as a Democrat. They're crazy. They're voting for a 65% tax increase, and they're only doing it for hatred. They're not doing it for any reason. They know it's terrible. Terrible politics, in my opinion. But
because you're telling the Democrats, we don't have enough Republicans to support this, and we have a majority. We told most Americans, guess what? This is what you voted for. We need 4 or 5 Democrats to offset the 4 or 5 Republicans that are going to vote against this. That's the truth they don't want to tell you. Just blame it on the Democrats. No. Yes, you could probably have 2 or 3 Democrats that flip over, but you may have 7 Republicans that flip. And we don't want to call out our own. We're going to call out the bull.
so we have no Democrat votes. That means we have to get almost all Republican votes. And I think we're very close to doing that. I think it'll be very successful. Yeah,
how don't you have them all, though?
Wall Street analysts have coined a new term called the taco trade. They're saying Trump always chickens
I'm in
out
Florida, too.
on your tariff threats, and that's why markets are higher this week. What's your response to that?
I kick out? Chicken out. Oh, isn't that nice? Chicken out. I've never heard that. You mean because I reduced China from 145% that I set down to 100 and then down to another number? And I said you have to open up your whole country, and because I gave the European Union a 50% tax tariff, and they called up and they said, please, let's meet right now. Please, let's meet right now. And I said, okay, I'll give you till July 9. I actually asked them, I said, what's the date? Because they weren't willing to meet. And after I did what I did, they said, we'll meet anytime you want. And we have an end date of July 9th. You call that chickening out? Because we have $14 trillion now invested, committed to investing when Biden didn't have practically anything. This country was dying. You know, we have the hottest country anywhere in the world. I went to Saudi Arabia. The king told me. He said, you got the hottest we have the hottest country in the world right now. 6 months ago, this country was stone cold dead. We had a dead country. We had a country people didn't think it was going to survive, and you ask a nasty question like that. It's called negotiation. You set a number. And if you go down, if I set a number at a ridiculous high number and I go down a little bit, a little bit, they want me to hold that number, 145% tariff. Even I said, man, that really got up. You know how it got? Because of fentanyl and many other things, and you added it up. I said, where are we now? We're at 145%. I said, whoa, that's high. That's high. They were doing no business whatsoever, and they were having a lot of problems. We were very nice to China. I don't know if they're going to be nice to us, but we were very nice to China. And in many ways, I think we really helped China tremendously because, they were having great difficulty because we were basically going cold turkey with China. We were doing no business because of the tariff, because it was so high. But I knew that. But don't ever say what you said. That's a nasty question. Go ahead.
Mr. President,
to me, that's the nastiest question.
Mr. President,
wait a minute. Wait. Go ahead, please.
President Zelensky says he's ready to sit down with you and Vladimir Putin in Geneva, and it sounds like General Kellogg is working on preparations for that. Are you planning to sit down with the two of them?
Well, I will if it's necessary, takes. We have to. I think I'm at this point. I wish you would have been that way a couple of months ago.
Hey, Freddie. Hey, Anthony.
But at this point, we're working on President
Lonnie.
Putin, and we'll see where we are. I think we're doing fine, but we'll see. I don't like what's happening. That's one thing I'll say. I don't like when I see rockets being shot into cities. That's no good. We're not going to allow it.
You've always said that the war never would have started if you were
Would have never
president.
happened, and it didn't
He doesn't
happen.
seem willing to do anything that you want him to do. Do you still believe that he wouldn't have launched the war?
No, we would have never had a war. We would have never had a war. If I were president, if the election weren't rigged, you wouldn't have had the war. You wouldn't have had the war. You wouldn't have had inflation. You wouldn't have had October 7th. That would have never happened because Iran was stone cold broke. They didn't have any money to give to Hamas or Hezbollah. You wouldn't have had that Afghanistan most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. You wouldn't have had any of it. You wouldn't have had inflation because energy costs. Look what happened. I brought inflation down to practically zero. And all of the groceries and all of the eggs and all of the things that you've been hearing about, they're back down. They're way down from where they were. I did something in 4 months that nobody's seen. And I have to say, in 4 months, and I said it before, and everyone's talking about it all over the world, we've got the hottest country anywhere in the world right now. We're the only country anybody's even talking about. All right, please.
Every day something changes.
New sanctions on Russia.
Only the fact that if I think I'm close to getting a deal, I don't want to screw it up by doing that. Let me tell you, I'm a lot tougher than the people you're talking about, but you have to know when to use that. If I think it's going to hurt a deal, this isn't my war. This is Biden's war, Zelensky's war, and Putin's war. This isn't Trump's war. I'm only here for one thing, to see if I can end it, to save 5,000 lives a week and a lot of money, the money being much less important, because I made that money. I went to Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and UAE, and we brought back $5.1 trillion. So I made that money in about 2 hours, the money that we're talking about, but it's still think of it, $300 billion we've spent with no checks, no balances. They just send cash. You can imagine what's happened to that money. I never saw anything like it in my life, but I'm more interested because I picked up $5.1 trillion and, by the way, got a beautiful, big, magnificent
jet,
free airplane for the United States Air Force, okay? Very proud of that, too. They tried to say, oh, it's Trump's airplane. Oh, yeah, sure. It's too big. Frankly, it's too big, much too big.
When can we expect that to be the Air Force One?
Well, it's here already.
Yeah.
It's in the country. It's being refitted for military standard.
How much will it cost to refit it?
Oh, I don't know. Whatever it is, a hell of a lot less than building a new one. We're waiting too long from Boeing. Boeing has got to get its act together. Yeah.
Boeing got called out.
This arrangement that was just announced in the
Yeah.
Golden Share, is that an arrangement you would consider for TikTok as well?
Nothing to do with TikTok. Totally different kind of a deal. We'll have to get, to do it properly, we'll probably have to get China's approval. China's never easy. China's never easy. But I think we'll be able to save TikTok. I'd like to save TikTok. I mean, TikTok was very good to me. I won the young people by 37%.
There we go. That's all you need to give.
No Republicans ever won, and I won by 37%. And Charlie Kirk will tell you TikTok helped, but Charlie Kirk helped also. Oh, he just happens to be here. Look at him. He loves that we mentioned that name, right, Charlie? He's done great, and I appreciate all the help. But with young people, we won by 37%, Charlie, and you helped. But TikTok was amazing. And he was the first one. He said, get on TikTok. So I have a little bit of a warm spot. I know I shouldn't. They'll say quid pro quo, put him in jail for the rest of his life, quid pro quo. No, TikTok was very good to me. I won young people. I don't know if it was because of TikTok, but it was something happened. No Republican has ever won they call them young people. Young people, you can define it a lot of different ways, but I won every age group in young people. And it never happened, and won by 37%. That's a lot. Yeah.
Back
on Trump always going to remind you.
Prime Minister Netanyahu against taking some sort of actions that could disrupt the talks there in a phone call last week?
Well, I'd like to be honest. Yes, I did. Next question, please.
Just last on sanctions.
I did, yeah.
If Senate Republicans want to push
It's not a warning. I said I don't think it's appropriate.
What exactly did you tell him? Did
I
you
just said,
caution
I
him?
don't think it's appropriate. We're having very good discussions with him, and I said, I don't think it's appropriate right now. Because if we can settle it with a very strong document, very strong, with inspections and no trust. I don't trust anybody.
Oh.
I don't trust anybody. So no trust. I want it very strong where we can go in with inspectors. We can take whatever we want. We can blow up whatever we want, but nobody getting killed. We can blow up a lab, but nobody's going to be in the lab, as opposed to everybody being in the lab and blowing it up, right? Two ways of doing it. Yeah, I told him this would be inappropriate to do right now because we're very close to a solution. Now, that could change at any moment, could change with a phone call. But right now, I think they want to make a deal, and if we can make a deal, save a lot of lives.
When do you think a deal could happen on Iran?
On which?
A deal with Iran could happen. When do you
I
think?
don't know. I think over the next couple of weeks, if it happens. Yeah.
And on the, when could the administration resume the interviews for foreign students' visa? When do you think your administration could resume these interviews?
On what?
For the foreign student visa. Yesterday there was
French visa for
French too, but all the foreign students.
Oh, for the foreign visas? What are you referring? Foreign visas for what? Are you talking about for colleges? Okay, so you're off of Israel. Now you're talking about colleges, right?
Yes, now.
Okay. Well, we're going to see. Look, Harvard has been a disaster. They've taken $5 billion plus. $5 billion. Nobody knew that they were making this kind. If we didn't do this, we would have never found this out, Pam. They're taking $5 billion. And I'd rather see that money go to trade schools. And by the way, they're totally anti-Semitic at Harvard, as you know, and some other colleges too, in all fairness to them. And it's been exposed, very exposed. And I think they're dealing very badly. Every time they fight, they lose another $250 million. Yesterday we found another $100 million. And they have, they have a fund, an endowment, $52 billion. All right? They get a lot of that from the United States. And I think it's ridiculous. I think this, everyone's coming up to me saying, we love the idea of trade schools with that kind of money, and money from others, but money from them. You can have the best trade schools anywhere in the world. You give them to Iowa, Indiana, lots of good states, well-run states, and you give them the money. They can only be used for trade schools, and they'll teach people how to build motors and cars and AI, the AI, we're building plants.
I had no idea about that, BH.
Hundreds of billions of dollars worth of AI plants already started, many of them. We've never had a boom like we're having now. You're going to see it. There's never been.
One thing people have to take into account with AI, especially with these data centers, they draw a lot of heat and they need to be in the waterways. So it's the point of saying, realistically, as we build out these data centers, how do we protect our water? But we don't want to have that conversation tonight.
Anything like it. So we're up to about $14 trillion in investments. There's never been anything even close. You look at Biden, this guy, they had people leaving as opposed to investing. And they're doing it because of November 5th, and they're doing it because of the tariffs. The tariffs have been tremendous. I can promise you, and I have great respect for the people at the European Union, they wouldn't be over here today negotiating if I didn't put a 50% tariff on. The sad thing is now when I make a deal with them, it's something much more reasonable. They'll say, oh, he was chicken. That's so unbelievable. I usually have the opposite problem. They say, you're too tough.
Mr. President, on Harvard, there were some Jewish students protesting on campus yesterday. They said they don't want you making these huge cuts, cutting off student visas to Harvard in their name, because they feel
Harvard
like
has to show us.
More of a target.
Okay, Harvard has to show us their lists. They have foreign students. About 31% of their students are foreign-based, almost 31%.
Yeah, it's kind of wild when you think about it.
We want to know where those students come. Are they troublemakers? What countries do they come? And we're not going to, if somebody is coming from a certain country and they're 100% fine, which I hope most of them are, but many of them won't be, you're going to see some very radical people. They're taking people from areas of the world that are very radicalized. And that's
because their parents can afford it. But then the other part of it is this. I guess this out the brain drain. What if, not to say you take all international students out, but how is it that one of the top universities in our country is taking more than 30% of their students aren't even, shouldn't it be like 99%? Maybe that's the greediest part of America in me. I'm not saying we don't get any international students, but it's like, I kind of agree with Trump a little bit on this. You should be, you know, as I said, buy American. Go get some of these students that you know deserve an opportunity in America. Stop bringing in these international students, because you can still pay the out-of-state tuition and still get that money. They're still paying out-of-state tuition. They're not paying an exorbitant cost on top of being international, but outside of travel. And if they come in here, they already got it.
We don't want them making trouble in our country. So I saw yesterday that in the middle of the UK, there was a nice young man. He wants to go back to school at Harvard, and he looked good to me, but I want to check his best. But we want to be able to see why, you know, these countries aren't helping us. They're not investing in Harvard and all of our, we are. So why would 31%, why would a number so big? I think, number one, I think they should have a cap of maybe around 15%, not 31%. We have people want to go to Harvard and other schools. They can't get in because we have foreign students there. But I want to make sure that the foreign students are people that can love our country. We don't want.
No, I think they all love our country. As a first generation American, thank you. Welcome to the channel. I know that people are coming here for a better life, maybe some fighting persecution. The students, outside of, you know, some very wealthy, spoiled, entitled kids, they're there, but there are also some great geniuses that are in American schools that may go to Brown or may go to a HBCU or may go to a just random PWI. And they could have got into Harvard. I'm sided with Trump on that. Cut it down to like 10-15%.
We want to see shopping centers exploding. We don't want to see the kind of riots that you had. And I'll tell you what, many of those students didn't go anywhere. Many of those students were troublemakers caused by the radical left lunatics in this country. All right, one more question.
President Harvard,
yeah, go ahead, please.
Will you pardon the people who are accused of conspiring to kidnap Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer?
I'm going to look at it. I will take a look at it. It's been brought to my attention. I did watch the trial. It looked to me like somewhat of a railroad job. I'll be honest with you. It looked to me like some people said some stupid things. You know, they were drinking, and I think they said stupid things. But I'll take a look at that. And a lot of people are asking me that question from both sides, actually. A lot of people think they got railroaded. A lot of people think they got railroaded. And probably some people don't. One more. Go ahead. Yeah.
How will the confrontation with Harvard end? You foresee?
I don't know. I don't know. Harvard's got to behave themselves. Harvard is treating our country with great disrespect, and all they're doing is getting in deeper and deeper and deeper. They've got to behave themselves. You know, I'm looking out for the country and for Harvard. I want Harvard to do well. I want Harvard to be great again.
Yeah,
probably. Because how can
you.
It be great? How can it be great when you have Harvard announced 2 weeks ago that they are going to teach remedial mathematics, remedial, meaning they're going to teach low-grade mathematics, like 2 + 2 is 4. How did these people get into Harvard if they can't do basic mathematics? How did they do it? I mean, people with 1,600 of their boards don't get in, and they're letting people in, and they're bragging about how they're teaching them basic mathematics. Where did these people come from? So we have to look at the list, and Harvard has to understand the last thing I want to do is hurt them. They're hurting themselves. They're fighting. You know, Columbia has been really, they were very, very bad what they've done. They're very anti-Semitic and lots of other things. But they're working with us on finding a solution. And, you know, they're taking off that hot seat. But Harvard wants to fight. They want to show how smart they are, and they're getting their ass kicked. Thank you very much.
That's a presidential sign off. That's how you drop the mic on them. But let's get into the Larry Hoover thing next, you know, because like somebody mentioned earlier, how does this all relate? It relates this way, you know, it's a buildup. I can't just give you Larry Hoover in the beginning, because in an hour or two in, you won't even be relevant to the conversation. But, you know, it's me learning how to stream. So I appreciate the patience. But more than anything, if it's your first time here, I am the hip hop lobbyist. I am a professional lobbyist in the state of Florida. I've been doing it 15 years. I never wanted to work in politics. And this is my channel. Back in October, I started posting, or July, sorry, around the debate when Biden should have dropped out. And then when Kamala got in, I posted some more about the election, and it took a little while. Losing a couple clients, good and bad reasons. I said, you know what, let me build out this YouTube channel. And I've quietly gone from 347 subs to over 1,800. We hit 1,800 subs tonight. I appreciate y'all tapping in. But let's get into the Larry Hoover piece. He got commuted, not pardoned. He still has 200 years, I believe, of his state sentence left to serve. So the federal charges were dropped, but let's at least get into this. People who don't know and really came here from the headline.
In Chicago tonight, President Trump is commuting the federal sentence of Gangster Disciples co-founder Larry Hoover.
Suzanne Lemonnier is in our newsroom. Suzanne, this move doesn't mean he'll be getting out of prison.
Erica, Joe, legal experts see this as a potential hollow victory. Now, while Hoover may be released from federal prison, he still has a 200-year state sentence for which a parole board has already denied early release. In 1993, Hoover spoke to former CBS News Chicago reporter John Davis, and at that time, Hoover was 42 years old and had already served 20 years in prison.
Wait a minute. Now, I know they say you do your best before you turn 36. But Larry Hoover was straight gangster with it. Didn't even see outside of the outside after 25. And he's been in jail for 20 years and has a 200-year, like, that's some really gangster. I think I'm Big Meech. I think I'm Larry Hoover. Pushing pardons. Magaluya. That's what this is.
I've done my time. I paid my debt to society.
That was Larry Hoover more than 3 decades ago. At that time, the leader of the Gangster Disciples and convicted murderer told our John Davis he had a lot of time to think about ways to stop the gang violence on the streets of Chicago.
One teenager don't like the other teenager because the way he wears his hat, because his ideology is different from his. A disciple don't like a vice lord. We all black people. It's no different.
At that time, Hoover, also known as King Larry, admitted being part of a fragile gang truce in the city and organizing a protest over plans to close health care clinics in African-American neighborhoods. Ron Safer, the lead prosecutor in Hoover's federal trial, reacts to news Hoover's life sentence has been commuted by President Trump.
I was disappointed. I do not think that this is an appropriate end to the Larry Hoover story, at least the federal part of it.
Safer says Hoover was perhaps the most notorious criminal the state of Illinois has ever known.
He was convicted of running a continuing criminal enterprise that had approximately 30,000 members across 28 states, selling over $100 million worth of drugs in the state of Illinois alone each year.
Wait a minute.
And he ran that entire operation with ruthless efficiency from prison, where he was serving a state sentence for double murder.
Safer also.
Y'all think locking Diddy up gonna change anything? That's crazy.
Told us about Hoover being recorded, saying teenagers need to sell
Byron.
drugs for his criminal organization.
2225.
The recording was made a year after the Gangster Disciple leader was interviewed on CBS Chicago.
There was another tape where Larry Hoover said, you have to share your drugs with these children. And I'm talking about 12 years old, 13 years old, 14 years old, so that they can sell it and they can have something. And he said, make them know that with you, they are somebody, and without you, they are nobody.
Meantime, shortly after the commutation announcement, Hoover's son posted this picture on Instagram. That's a White House official holding a copy of the commutation. Hoover's attorneys say they're thrilled he's going to be released from federal custody, but again, he still has a 200-year sentence to serve for his crimes in Illinois.
See, and that's why I feel it's a distraction for the culture. Because when you drop a Larry Hoover, people don't know what a pardon is. They really, okay, cool, his federal charges are dropped. He had the sentence commuted. That's cool. Amazing. Hey, Terry. But he's still gonna be in prison. Now, NBA Youngboy, and as you've seen, hey, you got to really find out how he got here in the first place, right? So let's find out how NBA Youngboy got here in the first place, and then
NBA Youngboy received sentence
We'll
for
go from
federal
there.
gun case. NBA Youngboy is now heading to prison according to a new report from All Hip Hop. This sentence stems from the ongoing federal gun case that was originally handed down to the prolific
Fix this up,
rapper
y'all.
back in Louisiana in 2020. If you remember, he was indicted for possession of a firearm by a convicted felon and possession of a firearm not registered in the National Firearms Registration and Transfer Record in 2021. This case has been going on for quite some time, and it was eventually transferred over to his most recent state of residence, Utah.
Oh, he's never
That
gonna
happened
put a
because
laundry.
NBA Youngboy took a guilty plea deal back in mid to late August. Prior to the reveal of what his prison sentence would be, there were reports saying that he could have faced up to 10 years. Today, it is an entirely different story. Youngboy's lawyer, Bradford Cohen, says that he's receiving just 27 months behind bars in addition to 5 years of probation. That's quite the far cry from the original prediction, and there's even a chance that his stay could be shorter. Global plea 27 months will be out with credit time served in probably 12 months, Cohen said. He also feels this because the case in Utah is weak and the federal case
Yeah. I believe with that.
Obviously,
Anthony.
while going to prison is never ideal, this is as big of a
Let me straighten this out all the way. Hold on, there we
Stay
go.
tuned to Hot New Hip Hop for all of the latest news from around the music world. We will continue to keep you informed on all of your favorite.
So it's not even about that part. It's about, okay, NBA Youngboy's part, Larry Hoover's part. It gets some attention around, okay, cool, why are they in here in the first place? We get some kind of context of all the names. But they aren't all the people. There's another part. Hold on, let me pull up the names real quick. Because it was the reality TV stars. Hold on. Trump pardons, the Chrisleys. With this, gotta get through the ad. You know we're gonna get through the ad. Actually, no. Why were Todd and Chrisley arrested? Or what were they originally charged with? Yeah, I didn't.
Reality TV couple Todd and Julie Chrisley facing 30 years in prison.
You don't lie, you don't cheat, you don't steal.
There have been reports of you having said, just fix it, fix these documents.
That's not true.
The Chrisley Knows Best stars denied any wrongdoing in our exclusive last August, but yesterday a federal jury found them guilty on all charges in their fraud case. Prosecutors say Todd and Julie took out $30 million in fraudulent bank loans to fund their lavish lifestyle.
In a year, we probably spend $300,000, sometimes more, just on clothing.
Here are individuals that have lived this lavish lifestyle in the public eye and are still lying and stealing to get it. I think that can have a huge impact on a juror's final decision.
Todd's ex-business partner also gave bombshell testimony, alleging he and Todd had a year-long affair. Todd denies that, but legal analyst Julie Rendelman explains why it was significant.
It allows the jury to say, this is a fair reason why we should believe this person, because they had a motive to help Todd Chrisley.
Is our marriage perfect? No, it's not, but we're not throwing in the towel.
A lawyer for Julie tells ET the couple is devastated and disappointed with the verdict and will be pursuing an appeal. Meanwhile, both Chrisley reality shows were renewed last month, and Todd is set to host a new dating series. A source familiar with Chrisley Knows Best tells ET they aren't currently filming and upcoming episodes were filmed before the trial. Todd and Julie are now on house arrest, awaiting sentencing set for October 6th.
Both of them must inform probation if they spend more than $1,000.
No, let's see what they were sentenced for.
It may be tough considering their previous spending habits.
No, let's see. No, they were actually released. Yeah, we got to get through these ads. We got to buy YouTube Premium, y'all, especially if we stream. This is just an inconvenience for
We
y'all.
have an update on our lead story today. That reality show TV star turned convicted felon Todd Chrisley was just released from prison after a pardon from President Trump. Let's go back to News Nation's Brian Anton live outside that prison in Pensacola, Florida. Brian, I hear they snuck him out the back.
They did, Elizabeth. I heard a rumor that this was going to happen. You know, this prison is actually controlled by the Navy because it's on a Navy base, and I was told the Navy was going to help them get out through a back, small little entrance. It's hard to even see on the map, but they did it. So Todd Chrisley is now out of prison. He's on his way back to Nashville right now, I'm told. A lot of the fans who are here don't really realize it yet, so they're going to be disappointed because they wanted to see him come by. His wife, Julie Chrisley, I am told, is still in prison right now. In Kentucky, their son is there, Grayson, their son is there, hoping to get her out sometime soon, hopefully tonight, he says.
Going to be quite a family reunion for the Chrisleys, who still had many years left on those prison sentences before getting...
Well, listen to this.
Yeah?
You say that. Yeah, they haven't seen each other or been able to talk to each other for 2.5 years, which I thought was interesting. They're not allowed to talk on the phone. So it is going to be an interesting reunion.
Well, Brian Enton, you've been in touch with Todd Chrisley for years now. From behind bars, he was calling you to complain about the prison conditions inside that pretty minimal security prison there in Pensacola, Florida. But I'm sure if he talks to anybody, it'll be to you. So.
Yeah, we'll see how that plays out. But overall, the medias are the main distractions. They're the main distractions that say, you know what, they pardoned NBA Youngboy, they pardoned Larry Hoover, they pardoned the Chrisleys. And it's really through access. Whoever these people had lobbying for them to get to Trump or the Susie Wiles or whoever was in charge of this, they paid the hefty price for it and it got done, right? I think paying to get out of prison, if you have access to do it, you know, it's one of those things, a favor you can call the president. But here's why the distraction is there. Because the Republicans just aren't with this tax bill in the Senate. And we're going to hear from Senator Rick Scott about the big, beautiful bill on Fox Business from earlier today. So let's see what the good senator from Florida has to say, the senior senator.
Joining me now is Florida Senator Rick Scott. Senator, good to see you. Thank you so much for being here. What specifically do you want to see to change your mind about this no vote you're talking about?
Well, first off, I want to be a yes. I want to get a bill done. I support President Trump's agenda, secure the border, build up the military, make the tax cuts permanent. And I think we've got to do all these things. But let's live in reality for a second.
Let's go.
We're running $2 trillion deficits. If we follow the path of the House bill, we'll have close to, I think, $60 trillion worth of debt in 10 years. Okay? The American taxpayer has said they don't want to give us higher taxes. They don't like the taxes we have now. They're not giving us more money. What we've got to do is do what every family does. We've got to go through every line in the budget. It's not, look, you can say, I don't want to continue the Green New Deal stuff. I don't. I want to make sure Medicaid is taking care of poor kids and chronically disabled. I do.
Yeah,
but the bottom line is we've got to look at every line in the budget, just like you do with your family. I did it as governor of Florida. I walked into a state that had not lived within its means for 40 years. I went through every line of the budget, every line. There's 4,000 lines. We had a written purpose for every line. That's what DOJ is doing. That's what we've got to do as senators, as House members. We've got to go through every line of the budget and say we're going to get down to a balanced budget. We can do it. We can allocate these dollars and do the right things for the American public.
So what I'm asking is for some specifics, but let me just stay on DOJ for a second because you brought up DOJ.
Hold on, I want to make sure y'all can see this, chat. So we can all be on the same page about these 2017 tax cuts. And again, I'm gonna get this right. Once I get the stream there right, we're gonna be flipping scenes left and right in here. All kind of willy-nilly stuff. But anyway, until then, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. But I just want to make sure this is right so the people can see. Let's get back to it.
If you're so interested in DOJ, why did you and your colleagues not codify into law the DOJ cuts?
Well, first off, we haven't had the opportunity to vote on it in the Senate. I clearly would codify the DOJ cuts. I don't know why the House didn't do that. You know, look, I appreciate all my colleagues in the House working hard, but we've got a lot more work to do. So we've got to look at all the Doge opportunities. But the reality is,
so you
will
vote to codify the Doge cuts. You will vote to when given the opportunity. You will vote to codify the Doge cuts when given the opportunity.
Hold on, I can't compete audio. I don't have a problem with Rick Scott. When he was governor, I had a great relationship with his staff. Some of the people there are still great friends, and they're still connected to him. One of my business partners was actually the former legislative on his campaign and helped him get elected governor. I don't have a problem with Rick Scott. I do think that for Democrats, they've tried to campaign against him on the Medicare fraud for 10, 15 years now, however long he's been elected. It hasn't worked. I do think that, you know, like he's pressed here by the press, he stutters, he doesn't answer all the questions. However, he's an okay guy. I just think that, you know, he's socially awkward because he thinks because of his humble beginning that he relates to people that are still humble, but he's a billionaire, millionaire, blind trust fund baby at this point. But human side, I think he gets it. I think he's a compassionate guy. And that's from people who I trust in Republicans, black and white, not super, like my man Byron Donalds, but people in the middle who get it. HBCU alum who get it. Great people, good guy. So if they agree with him, people I rock with, then I support him off that. But he still has a job to do as a U.S. Senator and as a Republican. Because again, they're not trying to attack each other. They're trying to blame it on the Democrats. But again, they have majority. They have 53 to 49, 47 technically in the Senate. Democrats don't have enough power to control any of this. You're just blaming the outside situation.
Absolutely. I mean, of course, we haven't seen every one of them exactly what they are, but, you know, I'm into balancing the budget. We're not going to get inflation under control. We're not going to get interest rates down. If that's what the American public, this last election was about securing the border and getting rid of inflation.
Which is all talking point. It's all talking point at this point. So we got to say that on both sides. What the election was versus what people feel today. The election was 6 months ago. People are past it. So now people want results because people don't realize government doesn't act how people want. In 6 months, people deserve to see a change.
Look at credit card interest rates. Look at car loan. Look at housing. All that's getting hurt because of higher interest rates. And by the way, logically, I don't know what's going to happen to interest rates, but when you have to refinance over $9 trillion for the treasuries, I think this year, and we're running $2 trillion deficits, who thinks it's really going to go down a lot? Who's going to be all the buyers of these bonds to get the interest rate down? So I think we've got to balance the budget. That's what will get interest rates down.
Senator, I find it rich that you are talking like this when, in fact, just recently we saw the House come up with $1.5 trillion in cuts and the Senate came up with $4 billion in cuts. Why was the Senate so low on cuts to be identified?
Well, the difference, that was the resolution to get the process started. That was a resolution just simply to get the process started. We've always committed that we're going to find more cuts than that because
she's asking a question that's by process. I guess she's trying to make them look foolish or at least explain, but at least telling people that we have ways to go. This is just the beginning of how this thing's going to go, to be honest. The House has an offer. As I always say, it's like a family budget. You have, in our case, the governor's budget, the House budget, the Senate budget, or the president, House, Senate. The president has ideals on what he wants to get done. It's like a mom, dad, and a kid. The kid has the most adventurous budget. The dad has something that's, you know, more practical. The mother has the real budget. And from that, it's like the kid's budget is basically the House budget now, the big, beautiful bill. That's why it's beautiful. Colored chalk lines, all the other stuff. Now the Senate is going to try to make it more practical. And from there, the president's going to get a final package in the next couple of weeks, months, or whatever, that has a complete package together of what's negotiated. And I think, again, the biggest thing is there's a lot of narrative, but we got to get to the statute. But we're not doing statute today. We're actually going to do more statutes next week after I get back from vacation. But yeah.
And different than the House, when the Senate starts its resolution process, we can't be below any, we have to hit every number at the minimum. And so historically what they've done on reconciliation, the Senate have just put in low numbers. But look, I don't know a Republican colleague I have that doesn't want to give to a balanced budget. I don't know any that doesn't want to help Trump get his agenda done. So I think we can get there. I'm optimistic. It's going to take a lot of work, but I think we can. I think we can clearly get his big, beautiful bill done. I think we can clearly have fiscal sanity.
Okay. So tell me about that fiscal sanity. What's most important to you? Is it raising the debt limit? Is it the Medicaid cuts? Is it removing those IRA green energy credits in Biden's Inflation Reduction Act? And how come they're not all gone, by the way?
The process.
I think it's all the above. I think you've got to do those things. But even when we do those, we don't get to a balanced budget. So the only way we're going to do this is we're going to get to do this by going through every line in the budget. Now, my goal would be to not have to raise the debt ceiling because we balance the budget. That would be the best thing we can do, and that's what we should be doing.
So have you done it? Can you identify some specifics for us?
They told us how much they're going to give us in revenues.
Can you identify some specifics? Can you identify some specifics for us?
Have you done it?
Have you gone through every line in the budget? And can you?
You could tell. Not by this facial expression, but the one before. He don't like this shit. Like, as someone who's seen my man in action, shout out to my man Mike Calhoun, the former general for the state, with Rick Scott on every hurricane. My man doesn't like to be flustered, and he's flustered right now. I'm being grilled by this journalist.
Today, give us some specifics in terms of what needs to be cut to get you on board.
Maria, you cannot see a copy of the budget. We do spending bills. We don't have budget bills.
How long have you been in the Senate? How long have you been in Congress? You know the budget, roughly speaking, right?
That's wild. She'll talk to Rick Scott like that. Maybe it's because I'm from Florida. Maybe because she's a Republican grilling him. I didn't expect her to go so hard on him. But then again, if he's a no on the bill, she's fighting for Trump to make him look bad for the people. But you're not going to beat Rick Scott in an election because guess what? 6 years from now, when he's back on the ballot, people will never remember this. So you can attack him now, but he knows he can afford to take a vote here that people may not like. Because in 5.5 years, they're never going to remember this situation. This is the politics. This is the game.
Well, I can tell you where I would start.
Thank you.
But you've got to get every line of the budget. So I would start. You've got to get rid of the Green New Deal. We've had a 53% increase in spending the last 5 years. So why don't we go back and say we're going to start with pre-pandemic spending, and then see if we need to spend more.
I didn't know that, Terry.
You would do with your personal life. But then I would go through I don't mean to pause this again, Terry.
I didn't know that. This is my first time honestly watching her, right? I don't watch CNN. I don't watch MSNBC. I watch Fox News to hear what the other side is saying. But I didn't know it was like this. We definitely, Terry, if it's like this, we definitely got to add her to the rotation of videos that we get in our news briefs from, our political commentary, because I actually like the way she's fair and balanced with this a little bit.
Go through Medicaid. I would go, but you've got to do every line. You're not going to do enough if you just focus on the Green New Deal and you just focus on making sure Medicaid goes back to its original purpose.
Yeah.
We shouldn't be spending more money for able-bodied adults for health care than we are on poor kids.
Yeah. No,
that makes no sense to me.
I agree with you. And the Committee for Responsible Budget says it's going to add $3 trillion to the debt, including interest over the next decade. What I'm trying to get at is what it's going to take for you to actually come around and say, okay, we've done our job. And are you considering the growth that President Trump's agenda will yield? We spoke with Kevin Hassett, the chairman of the Council on the Economy in the White House, and he said he's expecting a very strong growth number for the second half once the other parts of the agenda take hold, like deregulation. Listen to Kevin Hassett and give us your reaction. Watch.
How real she is.
Well, what's going to happen is there are going to be a lot of trade deals, and there's going to be clarity on the tax cuts, and then firms are going to lift off. But think about it. even before that happened, we're getting really strong jobs numbers. First quarter capital equipment investment was north of 20%, one of the best quarters ever, because all of America knows that the golden age is coming, and we got to start building stuff before everybody else gets in front of us. And so I think that you're going to look at a second half of the year that's way, way north of 3%, probably north of 4%, to give us one of the better years we've ever had. Because even with the uncertainty that you talk about, that I've written widely about over the last 25 years, even with that uncertainty, we've got strong jobs numbers and strong investment. And so once the uncertainty is lowered, then a liftoff from there is really going to be something to see.
Senator, your reaction?
Well, first off, Kevin's smart. I actually believe Kevin's right. I actually think we're going to grow our economy faster.
Peace, man.
That's exactly what I did when I was governor of Florida. I did the same thing. You grew the economy. It's still not enough to balance the budget. You still have to go through the budget and find the things that you can save money on. It will not be enough to balance the budget. I do believe the Trump agenda is a great agenda. I think Kevin's right. We're going to start growing faster.
That's very true.
But we're running
$2
trillion deficits. $2 trillion a year. We have got to get our fiscal house order. We can't have debt continue to outgrow our GDP, which is what's been happening.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Senator, what's the number that you want to see come out of this bill? This specific bill. Your colleagues have talked about cutting $2 trillion. Is it north of that you're looking for?
So what I want to get down to, I want the budget balance over the next 3 years. So to get that, we need to get the spending for the 26th budget cycle down to $6.5 trillion. Now, part of that's going to be through the reconciliation, which is mandatory spending, and part of that's going to be through our normal budget process, which will be in September, of discretionary spending. So we've got to do that, and then we've got to start holding the costs and do what Kevin has said. I really do believe that what the Trump agenda is going to do is it's going to grow the economy way faster. Yep. And so as we see that, we ought to be able to get to a balanced budget.
Okay. Look, that would be huge if you could actually achieve that. Final question here, Senator. Do you believe this is doable? Can you get this bill out the door after your modifications by the end of July?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm very optimistic we can get this done. We're having great conversations in the Senate, and I believe Republicans, both the House and Senate, want to get the Trump agenda done and want to balance the budget.
We're going to see, because there could be, as we get to this next one, there could be other issues. I think that the infighting that we're seeing, I got to straighten TikTok. Oh no, sorry, the Twitch stream. It's wild. I think a lot of the infighting will be there because essentially the senators and the House members vote for different issues. And when they're looking at it holistically, the senators representing the whole state versus a region of the state being the representatives, it changes the perspective. And I think that's the part where it's like, it'll be over $4 trillion. Last night, I think they said $5 trillion. Rand Paul basically said, like, listen, the initial was 4, they came over 5, they wanted around 2. It's hard cutting $100 out of budget. Shit, imagine $3 trillion. That's a whole lot of money. A whole lot of tax money. But speaking of tax money and things getting cut, of course, at least to our man, the Doge chairman, the former vice president, as we found out today, Elon Musk. Let's get to this clip. We're going to do a little CNN. And hopefully if I don't have any more yawns, we'll do one more clip and then wrap up this stream tonight. But appreciate y'all tapping in. I'm trying not to run like be a salesman. Just like and subscribe and share the stream. But if you're enjoying it so far, make sure you subscribe to the channel. And again, if you want to be the person to help me lock in a calendar, if you help me reach my goal and be a super chatter tonight, guess what? I will tell you the first official scheduled stream. But let's lock it in. Let's go ahead and see what Elon's talking about. And I think we addressed the Youngboy and Larry Hoover situation. And we talked about Diddy. So we really on a roll for what I plan on doing for the stream tonight and what we're actually doing, which is amazing. Because I'm still, sidebar, complete. We're going to get Elon. I'm still struggling trying to build out the show, right? I don't want to just randomly freestyle, hey, go over the big, beautiful bill, go through the statute one day, have ideas and never really get to publish them, right? But I am enjoying streaming and having this conversation. Diddy, Johnny 5, let me do some shout outs real quick. Hold on. Terry, of course, Terry tapping in, Lonnie here. Alpha, appreciate you tapping in. Who else? Let me get to some of these names. I'm going through the chat. I'm gonna go through the big chat. Hold on. Gotta go to the big chat. Everybody been in here tonight. Brad, Sis Black been here all night. Jacob tapping in. Who else? Anthony, Daniel, Mela, Paul, Troy, DB Cooper, Find a Way Today, Dark Press. Who else? DH. I already said Lonnie. Andre Washington. Appreciate you tapping in. Everybody. I appreciate all y'all being here. Let me stop talking. Let's get into Elon. I see some people falling off, but my loyal fan base is still here. I love y'all. Let's see Elon.
You know, I was like...
Can we play?
So, you know, I was like disappointed to see the massive spending bill, frankly, which increases the budget deficit, not just decrease it, and undermines the work that the Doge team is doing.
I think that's all we needed to hear. That's all we needed to hear, because Sunday morning this interview is going to be lit.
I actually thought that when this big, beautiful bill came along. I mean, like, everything he's done on Doge gets wiped out in the first year.
I appreciate you too.
I think a bill can be big or it can be beautiful, but I don't know if it can be both.
I think Elon has ran his course in the White House. Because again, a month ago, they said that Elon wasn't going nowhere, right?
Elon Musk's time at Doge is coming to an end, starting tonight. Musk just announced, as my scheduled time as a special government employee comes to an end, I would like to thank President Trump for the opportunity to reduce wasteful spending. The Doge mission will only strengthen over time as it becomes a way of life throughout the government. What do you think about him leaving at this point?
You know, imagine the frustration of a guy who has done all that Elon Musk has done, all of it through private enterprise. He's built rocket ships. He's done more to advance the electric automobile industry than any living person.
Yeah, this is just talking points. He's got a battery in his back, $1,000 battery. That's bigger than the Energizer Bunny.
In terms of connecting people around the world to the internet. And then he's finally met his match, and it's the federal government. And he goes into the federal government and did an honorable job of cutting spending, but politicians can't keep their hands off of our money at the end of the day.
It's like why successful people don't like to go into politics. If you're Trump, they shoot you in the head. If you're Musk, they burn your cars. Why would you?
Is there a growing
The big, beautiful Charlie Hurt.
Exactly.
Good to see you.
Click here to subscribe to the Fox News.
Let's go watch the CNN interview on it.
Is there a growing rift between President Trump and his one-time first friend, Elon Musk? The SpaceX and Tesla CEO expressed his disappointment with the president's sweeping tax and spending bill that passed the House and is currently facing some headwinds in the Senate. This is what Musk told CBS News.
I was like disappointed to see the massive spending bill, frankly, which increases the budget deficit, not just decrease it, and undermines the work that the Doge team is doing. I think a bill can be big or it can be beautiful, but I don't know if it can be both. All
right, with us now, Amisha Cross, a Democratic strategist, and Mark Short, the former chief of staff to Vice President Mike Pence. And Mark, this is the president's entire legislative agenda right now, this tax and spending bill. And Musk has been critical of the president's tariff policy, which is basically his entire economic agenda. That's a big part of what President Trump is pushing, that Elon Musk is now very publicly saying, I'm not for.
Sure, John. I do think, look, the sausage making can look like the big, beautiful bill isn't so beautiful. I think we have to keep in mind that in the House, the margin for Republicans is so small that I think Mike Johnson doesn't get due credit for people who said he wouldn't be able to get the votes to be Speaker. He wouldn't be able to avoid a shutdown. Now he got this tax bill through. And when you do that, sometimes you have to give favors to different constituencies to get it. I imagine the Senate will probably whittle it down some. But, you know, there's parts of this I'm very excited to see the tax bill moving forward. I think the president's trade agenda is indefensible.
I'll say it as a purely political endeavor, what Mike Johnson did was impressive. Yeah. Again, objectively getting that through was an impressive political feat. But to have Musk criticizing it on its substance, and this is not some minor policy that the president's pushing. This is his entire legislative policy.
Sure, and I can pick apart pieces of it that I don't like either, John. I think a lot of Republicans could. I think that some of the expansions of the SALT deductions is egregious. But
careful, you're in New York.
I know. But at the same time, I think the consequence of a $5 trillion tax increase on the American people is too much for Congress not to get this done.
Amisha, I want to play some sound just to stay on Elon Musk for a second, because Musk, it was a couple weeks ago where he said he was going to get out of the political giving business, and he had a soundbite that's been played, but the end of it I want you to pay attention to. Listen.
In terms of political spending, I'm going to do a lot less in the future.
And why is that?
I think I've done enough. Well, if I see a reason to do political spending in the future, I will do it. I do not currently see a reason.
It was that last line. I do not currently see a reason. Now, I don't have any particular insider sources inside Musk world, but I do have my eyes and ears. And that sounded like he was saying he doesn't like what he is seeing right now in politics, particularly from the...
This is what you get from both sides. Respectfully, Elon became a mega donor. Mega donor realizes that, you know what, you give for the person, and hopefully some policies, you get some contracts, whatever. This is the game. And he realized this whole game of cleaning up government is never going to happen for real, brother. You fell for the game, parading all over the country. And now all of a sudden, I can say by Christmas, the feud between Elon and Trump will be beautiful. Ugly and beautiful. Not even from a Democratic standpoint, because Democrats can't answer for shit, but from the drama. It's going to get good and nice and nasty. And we'll see.
The White House, which he's been so supportive of.
Well, I think there are two things at play here. As we can all recall, when Elon Musk went to Wisconsin a couple months ago, that blew up in his face really badly. The Elon Musk who's able to showcase his money, that is his calling card when it comes to primarying and creating challengers for Republicans who don't side with him in the Trump administration. He is making sure that people know that he's still there, that he still has a certain level of influence, but he's also trying to reel in some of the blow that he got, not only from investors at Tesla and some of those who are on the board, but also watching his own approval ratings tank. And I think that for him, that was a big hit. He doesn't agree with the big, beautiful bill. There are several parts of it that he finds problematic. But I also think that the big, beautiful bill, to Mark's point, is going to be significantly different by the time that it gets through the Senate. For Elon Musk, I think that some of this is personal. He has seen a strained relationship between him and Trump based on some basic disagreements on policy issues, but he's also someone who cares about his bottom line. And he doesn't agree with the moves that Trump specifically has taken when it comes to these tariffs.
We begin this morning with Elon Musk's disappointment as the tech billionaire is stepping away from politics. He's not shying away from commenting on his work with Doge and President Trump's sweeping tax and spending cuts package. Despite spending almost $300 million to help get Trump and GOP congressional candidates elected last year, Musk now makes it clear he's no fan of President Trump's so-called big, beautiful bill.
I was disappointed to see the massive spending bill, frankly.
How many times you're gonna run the same clip? That's quiet. Let me get my B Jordan off my screen. Hold on. It's good. We're gonna get YouTube Premium real quick, y'all. Hold on.
Character.
My personal.
That's
Joining us now here in the situation.
This is one reason why I stopped watching CNN. And I told you all I don't watch CNN. Because it's fake news. Y'all ran the same clip, the same time, and the same 2 times in the same 8-minute clip. And I played it for y'all before we even got here, hoping that they didn't play it as much.
Room CNN anchor and chief domestic
It's
correspondent
aggravating
Phil
after a
Manning.
while.
Phil, his
It's really
comments
fake
could put
news.
him at very serious odds with the president.
Yeah, it quite literally does put him at odds with the president. Obviously, the president and the White House pushing very hard to get this cornerstone of their legislative agenda, not just through the House, which they narrowly did last week, but also through the Senate. And it underscores that it's a very, very delicate moment for what is the central piece of legislation, not just for the president's border and defense policies, but also, of course, for his tax cuts reauthorization and the cornerstone of his economic plans. I think what this underscores is Musk, now out of the White House, at least on a regular basis, is reverting back a little bit to where he was before he entered the White House. Remember, Wolf, in the spending bill at the end of last year, his opposition almost derailed that continuing resolution. He got crosswise with the administration on immigration issues as well. He mostly kept his personal opinions to himself on bigger policy issues for the last 3 or 4 months. Now that he's out, he's kind of stepping away a little bit, seems that he's weighing back in. That's problematic for 2 reasons. One, he still has a significant amount of influence. Obviously spent nearly $300 million to help elect President Trump in 2024, has spent a lot of money on other Republican candidates as well. But more importantly, it's the issues that he was pointing out, which is the issue of the deficit, which, Wolf, as you know better than anybody, in the Senate is particularly problematic, where senators like Ron Johnson and Rand Paul are saying the House bill, even though they got it across the finish line, simply does not cut enough given where deficits and debts are right now.
Facts.
We'll see what happens in the Senate. That will be critical indeed.
I'm gonna cut Wolf off respectfully because we about to wrap up this stream. And honestly, I think we covered all my points tonight. Let me make this full face. First off, hold on. There we go. Go streaming on Twitch tonight too. First off, I do think it's a distraction for the NBA Youngboy to be released and everything else, because there's a part of the spin the Democrats are putting on this tax bill, people not understanding the process that has to go from the House to the Senate, then negotiate and send it back to the House and basically reconcile the issue, right? In Florida, we call it budget conference. But having that conference to say, okay, here's the most important things in this tax plan we want to put through is there, but it's also other pieces of legislation. One of my homies, we talked about the bill earlier, and he sent me this whole slew of other stuff. I threw it in GPT. I'm like, hey, is this even in this bill? They're like, none of this is in the bill. So it's like, oh, it's all narrative. Supreme Court justices and things that don't even make sense realistically to this tax bill, because people would rather spin the narrative on the nonsense than actually tell you what's in the bill. And not just the negative parts, everything in it. Like we talked about last night. I'm a father. I'm a husband. I have a family. But also that $2,500 tax credit. $2,000 to $25,000 is great. But I also know that if I want to call Senator Scott, or Aaron Bean, or Frederica Wilson, or any congressional member, Darren Soto from the state of Florida, and say, hey, I support this, or maybe the child tax credit could be increased to $3,500 instead of $2,500, I know that I'm going to have to send them to section 110004, which is a section in the big, beautiful bill that deals with the child tax credit. And my thing is, respectfully, we should know what we're telling people to go do, because I'm going to tell you as a lobbyist, as a professional, the protests don't get respected because they don't have it. Like when you start protesting to an elected official, they realize, oh, you're just here to get the hot air. That's cool. I'm going to let you speak. Cool, right? But they also realize that if you go give them the exact statute and you tell them exactly what you're looking for to get done and the research you've done and the reason why, and I'm only on the child support, sorry, not child support, the child tax credit, to talk about the provision that some people may like, right? Or if it's no tax on tips, no tax on overtime. To me, it's a fact of if I work overtime, I don't want to pay taxes on it. They've taken 40 plus, maybe 10 hours of my week. Let me get those 10 tax free, right? And it's not just for the thought of the waiter and the waitress. Go to your beautician, go to your hairstylist, go to your nail tech, your eyelash tech, my ladies to get their waxes done. The beauty of the painless beauty. Imagine everything. And my men too, men who get their nails done, hair, even if I need a haircut. But it's a point of saying, all right, cool, guess what? How does the average person that I actually tip, how would it impact them? Because you, one of two things, either you got to not claim it and run a risk of the IRS, or claim it and pay more taxes. And you're already underpaid because you work in a service job. So all in all, again, I think the pardons are distractions and it's access. Everybody, even though Larry Hoover, you a gangster, you still got access. Somebody gave up the gang and became a lawyer or a lobbyist and got to the president. The commuter sentence that you're still going to sit in state prison for. It happens. NBA Youngboy, y'all saw the charges. That's what they commuted. Maybe NBA Youngboy is better than Blueface. Blueface get out, it's going to be a problem. But then again, they seen what happened when they released Kodak. Kodak was laying in the street eating a sandwich a couple weeks ago on Aiden Raw's stream doing whatever. I don't know. They say NBA Youngboy like Tupac, so hopefully he's not. Regardless, to the main point, I think I'm getting better with this stream thing, y'all. I haven't even been cussing as much as I did when I was so passionate. And there's two reasons. One, as y'all know, my son's room is right above the studio, so I can't get too loud this late at night. During the day, it'll get there. But the biggest thing, thank y'all for tapping into the stream tonight, man. We've had over 30,000 people come in, chill with your boy. About 200 or 300 on the regular. Some doing it down to 100. It was really like 30 of y'all at first. If you're still here from the beginning, I appreciate you. Let me go through some of this chat. Then we're going to wrap up. But more than anything, please make sure you like and subscribe because we've grown again this channel from 346 subscribers in April to over 1,800 before we wrap up the month of May. And this will probably be my last stream for the month of May. And I didn't have a super giver, I don't believe. Let me double check. I don't think anybody gave. I tried it. My homie said, try it, see what happens. Nothing happened. Nothing happened. We can end this goal. Yeah, we can. Goal ended. Oh, the goal is already ended. But thank y'all. Oh, actually 40,000. Y'all are amazing. Again, like my career in politics, I never wanted to work in, I never wanted to do this. I literally had, I'm gonna tell you a true story. How to lobby. Do you want to see content on that? It's relationships and knowledge of the process. Like I never want to work in politics, but I had a client, former client I was working with. And the thing is, you got to take like 6 months to get a new client in. And it's not talking bad about anybody, but I realized I was at a pinnacle of chasing more clients or doing what I authentically love to do. And quietly, I told my homie earlier when Diddy said something last night, Johnny 5 was on here and said, I'm quietly loving the community that we're building. I don't know y'all by face. Y'all know me by face, of course. But I appreciate everybody who's tapped into the stream. I haven't scheduled any. People just popped in. But it's 2:30 in the morning. We have 107 people here. That's love. Either way, I'm tapping out. Got to get some rest. I actually got to finish packing my clothes. I washed my drawers and stuff for this trip this weekend. And I still haven't finished packing. Let me finish packing, get what I need to get done, take my son to daycare in the morning. I won't be streaming again until next Tuesday, 9:30. Next Tuesday, 9:30 will be my first official scheduled stream on the channel. Let me go back through the chat and say my good nights. Hold on. Alpha, appreciate you. The problem of no tax and overtime is usually falsely poor people in a higher tax bracket ignoring the major poor people. I get that. Lonnie, I appreciate that. Good night, Terry. Appreciate you. Turf, man, subscribe, man. We're going to do the how to lobby thing. I think it's imperative to teach people outside of the nonsense of what they hear about lobbyists, right? Don't you love how the media will admit or really tell people what you think about what to think? Yeah, you're right. Exactly. Cis Black's been amazing tonight. Thank you. Cash tips a very small amount of tips. You're right, Alpha. Cash tips are, but I'll tell you this. When I was a bag boy at Winn-Dixie, I could make at least $80 on a good weekend. And that would be enough to not only get me any new clothes, but also feed me going to school that time. So those cash tips do add up. Also, being a valet. Imagine working Florida State homecoming or Republican convention coming to town, and you're valeting cars and doing bellman work and front desk work for a hotel. Not just any rinky-dink, not those Motel 6. I mean the DoubleTree Hotel with the cookies, right? Doing a little bit of everything. Those cash tips added up, and I didn't report them. I didn't. Most tips are card. Some, not all. Some, not all. We can read. In the process of being passed by going to the White House website. Did this several years ago. Lonnie, yes, you can, but not a lot of people do that. Lonnie, not a lot of people go to the website to actually see it, because even the Golden Dome stuff was in the White House bill, but not a lot of people get there. And the other part of it is not a lot of people understand a bicameral system of government. So even now, I tell family members, I tell friends, don't talk to me about what's in this Trump bill, because it's the first version. Don't talk to me about what's in the big beautiful bill. It's the first version. So I don't have my box of briefs in a bunch, because I know it's early in the process where the Senate has to come and agree with what they're making sense of. Because again, the representatives represent 750,000 people on average. The senator represents the entire state of people. So 23 million people versus 750. They have a different mindset of what's important, right? Cool. So to me, that's how you kind of decide, okay, cool. The House passed their bill. The Senate has to have theirs. The Senate's going to base it on a greater population, on a greater impact, and then send it to the House and say, hey, let's reconcile. Let's agree to disagree on some things. But here's the main things that we need to pass through. But it's still early. It's still early vibes here, right? Mac, I'm not doing an upgrade tonight. Let me get through some of this chat. Exactly. The main tension here is wealth inequality at large. Very true. Very true. But I do feel that after monetizing my little channel, I ain't made a whole lot of money here. I do feel that, there are ways to make money easier today than it is 20 years ago. To be honest, Trump and people like Elon believe in our Constitution, and that's what America needs. I believe you. Protesting didn't fall out of the air. There were reasons why people did this. People losing jobs for no reason, causing whole families to suffer, while this guy has a public advertisement. Alpha, I agree with you. I also agree with the people out here who only believe in protest with no action, and then you're left with the remnants of whatever's there. Case in point, I'll put this. Did you know that when Dr. King and Malcolm X and other people were fighting for equal rights in this country, Medgar Evers and all, there were probably only 3 black people in the entire United States Congress. There were 60 years. No black person was represented in the entire United States Congress. So when you think about it, did you think that there was black members who were, or the people that were protesting that wrote the legislation? No. Baynard Rustin didn't write the legislation. Respect. But it's a fact of we weren't involved and the legislation was written. And for some reason, for 40, 50 years plus that point, we've stuck with the protest instead of the actual legislation. And that's why I always say it needs to be the staff analysis or the statutes, because I can't just argue with people about something that they didn't even read themselves. He completed his assignments or lived his usefulness. Now fall back. I don't believe he did. I think Elon got pushed out. I think the genocide narrative was the icing on the cake, because quietly this has been a rumor for like 2 or 3 years. Like Elon's doing too much. Not years, 2 or 3 months. They ain't been in that long. Trump has, but not Elon. I like his engineers, but his God complex ruins lives. Very true. Yeah, people destroying Tesla cars didn't make any damn sense to me. Like if I'm buying a $70,000 car and you throw a Molotov cocktail in there and you lose the fingerprints, I'm going to find out what the hell's going on. We talked about it earlier on the Shrimp Diddy trial, but it makes sense. I like Elon. I think he dropped because of all the bullshit Dems put him through. I agree to disagree with that, Terry. I think it's more what the Republicans are putting him through, because I've heard from some Republicans, federal and state, who are like, listen, man, Elon's making more money every day with all this shit. And they're looking at like Bezos loses $12 billion just for Elon to pick up $12 billion. And this is from Republicans. So I know at the end of the day that it's not all Democrats, respectfully. My girl, Terry. I'm about the family business only. I think I hit most of these chats. I think I hit most of these. Either way. Again, I'm getting ready to pack my clothes. I'm getting out. I appreciate y'all. Let me get through these last little bits. You made a great point, Alpha. Thank you for that. Also, a person. Right. And quietly, Lonnie, I want to do more state politics because Texas has banned marijuana, expanded charter schools, one of the biggest charter school expansions. So quietly, what I'm going to do this weekend, I no lie, I'm going to map out exactly, because I'm getting Google alerts, like the top 10 headlines and the top 10 things. I know I've talked about and promised a lot of things, but quietly through the authentic conversation and growing, I realize that we can build a community of people here who are educated about the process and not just nonsense. You know, that's what it is. So let me get these last couple comments and I'm getting their voice slowly faded. Cis black. That was too obvious, that part. I don't know what I said, but you know it. Clap it up. Where are we at? Unfortunately, so. Yep, Occupy Wall Street. Yep, people were protesting, but they didn't. Exactly. And I think the main thing is, my last point before I sign off is, I get tired of the protests. I understand the passion. I just don't want to run your blood pressure up without a solution. I play video games. I play chess. I play Madden, Call of Duty. You got to have a plan. You got to have a loadout before you get out there. You can't just go out there with your fisticuffs. You got to have a plan. And I think a lot of times protesters are in the war zone without any ammunition, without a loadout, and they can't survive. And I think the biggest thing is just trying to relate it to people. You need a plan. And I think that without a plan, we're just going through hot air. And that's why I'm saying, if you disagree with some of the tax bill, Republican or Democrat, okay, cool. Disagree with certain possessions or positions on it, but understand what's in it so you can understand, you know what, point people to issues that are impactful to your quality of life. And then that'll at least open your eyes to elected officials and be like, wait a minute, I can't bullshit them because they know something, but they can bullshit the protester because guess what? They dropped in the war zone with no loadout. Chestnut checkers, you already know. Please come visit Japan. Invite me. I would love to get there. I would love to come to Japan and talk, man. We tapping in from Japan tonight? Please, if there's a way I can go to Japan and talk politics, I'd love to do it. But let's build the channel out. Until then, like, subscribe. Y'all be safe till y'all hear from me. But I'm gonna be posting shorts contents and get some videos out there. And either way, thank y'all. Y'all have a good night. Be safe.